at the Center for Aerospace Power and Strategic Studies, New Delhi, and College of Aerospace Warfare, Secunderabad. Today's events are spread over 2 sessions with a 45-minute lunch break in between. To set the events in motion, may I now request Air Vice Marshal P.A. Shah, Commandant, College of Aerospace Warfare, to give the welcome address.
Air Chief Marshal Bhadoria, former Chief of Air Staff, senior officers, respected veterans, scholars, mentors of the WASP program, distinguished members from the diplomatic community, the media, and the rest of my colleagues logged in on the AFNet. It is indeed an honor for me to stand here and welcome you all to this capstone seminar. It has been jointly organized, as was brought out by the MC, by the College of Aerospace Warfare and the Center for Air Power and Strategic Studies, and it marks the culmination of the 5th edition of WASP. We stand today at this moment when there's a combination of the emerging tech and the VUCA world, which demands an educated, strategically and technologically attuned mind, capable of synthesis, foresight, and sound judgment under relentless pressure. The program is specifically tailored to address these realities. It cultivates the intellectual depth and adaptive thinking essential for today's aerospace leaders and the broader defense community. Built on the andragogy of an extensive daily reading of approximately 250 to 300 pages, rigorous seminar discussions and brainstorming with subject matter experts, the program transcends the knowledge of platforms and tactics and equips the participants with the habit of mind needed to shape strategic outcomes in an increasingly contested, congested, and dynamic battle space. Today's seminar is a visible culmination of that rigor. Our scholar warriors will present papers on 2 important themes. The first theme, by CAPS, is the evolution of aerospace power from classical strategy to contemporary limited conflicts. Recent limited conflicts have shown that success depends not only on technological superiority, but also on the ability to integrate multiple domains under intense political and operational constraints. The second theme by the College of Aerospace Warfare is future-proofing of aerospace power through innovation, integration, and force design. Innovation, seamless integration across the domains, and thoughtful force design will determine whether we merely react to future threats or are in a position to shape them to our advantage. However, I shall leave the details of those arguments to the participants who have earned their right to present their thoughts today. My goal here is focused on a deeper question, and that is, what is a program like WASP actually meant to build in an officer and by extension in our institutions? History offers a consistent answer. The difference in any crisis has rarely been made by raw intelligence or courage alone. In fact, both are common enough. It has usually been the quiet accumulation of 3 habits cultivated long before the crisis actually arrives. The first is the habit of curiosity, the willingness to read well beyond one's own specialization until judgment and not merely information begins to accumulate. This is the instinct that drove Clausewitz to insist that theory educates judgment rather than supplying ready-made answers. An idea this program has sought to instill through its reading lists. Indian military history offers powerful illustrations of the same. Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw's tenure as Commandant of DSSC sharpened the intellectual preparation that later contributed immensely to India's decisive victory in 1971. Similarly, Air Chief Marshal P.C. Lal's profound understanding of air power and its capabilities and challenges in the context of time led to meticulous preparation long before the actual hostilities commenced, enabling the Indian Air Force to achieve a convincing air superiority, close integration with the ground forces, and decisive strategic effect, contributing to a comprehensive joint victory. The second quality is candor, the willingness to speak truth to power, clearly and without hedging. A powerful illustration from our history is Lieutenant General Sagat Singh's action during the 1971 war. He decided to airlift his 4 corps across the Meghna River and push towards Dhaka despite explicit orders from his army commander not to do so. When the order was repeated, he is widely remembered to have replied, and I quote, "Jaggi over my dead body," unquote. That decision shortened the wars by days and led to the largest military surrender since World War II. Few of us will ever face a decision of that consequence. Yet, the underlying habit of trusting one's own studied judgment, enough to act on it, and defending it afterwards is exactly what this program tries to cultivate. The third is the habit of the pen. Military institutions make decisions of enormous consequence on the strength of a well-argued paper far more often than is commonly realized. Yet, writing is more often than not treated as an administrative overhead rather than a craft. Doctrine, force design proposals, and honest after-action reviews shape a service's future more profoundly than any single decision. The ability to write clearly is a skill like marksmanship that needs to be cultivated and practiced. Left by itself, it atrophies. The program's insistence on written essays and submissions after every module, including after this seminar, reinforces this discipline. The publication of the inaugural edition of the WASP Journal today is an extension of this thought process. However, none of these three habits are exclusive property of the officers graduating today. They are, in varying proportions, what this entire room of distinguished guests, faculty and scholars alike are in the business of cultivating across India's higher defense establishment. The 5th edition of WASP is just one small and deliberate attempt to do so systematically. Today's seminar is where we get to see what the attempt has produced. To our panelists and audience, thank you for giving us your time and your candor today. This seminar will only be as useful as the rigor you bring to the discussions that follow. And I urge everyone present here to engage fully, ask uncomfortable questions, and prioritize intellectual honesty over mere courtesy. Wishing us all a stimulating and productive day. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, for those enthralling words. We will now move into the session 1. The speakers of this session are the participants from CAPS, and the topic of this session is Evolution of Aerospace Power from Classical Strategy to Contemporary Limited Conflict. The session will be chaired by Mr. Shekhar Gupta. May I now request the chair and the panelists to kindly come up on the stage and occupy their respective seats. Mr. Shekhar Gupta is Editor-in-Chief of The Print and one of India's most distinguished journalists. A recipient of the Padma Bhushan and multiple journalism awards, he has reported on key events in India and from around the world since 1980s. At The Print, he had a daily online show, Cut the Clutter, in which he dissects, analyzes, and contextualizes complex daily national and global developments. He also writes his weekly column, National Interest. He is the author of India Redefines Its Role and IISS Adelphi paper published by Oxford University Press, as well as books such as Assam, A Valley Divided, and Anticipating India. Over to you, sir.
Am I audible? All right. This is as timely can be, because usually new thought processes come when one big thing happens. This has come after three big things have happened and are still happening. And three big things will be beginning with Ukraine, which actually started out with a very large scale ground movement, where Putin thought that he will just overwhelm the defenses, airborne assault on a big air base not far from Kiev. So both were involved. That was more like a classical operation. Then we had our own experience last year, Op Sindoor, which brought its own lessons after a very long time in the subcontinent. And then we've seen two stages, and now the third stage is on, two stages of the Middle East. One last year, when Israel carried out the raids and Trump closed it with a midnight hammer, and what happened this time and what's going on. What this is telling us is, one, that the classical method of combat, where airborne vectors were a part of it, that has now changed. Combat is becoming shorter, more decisive, and mostly non-combat, non-contact, and beyond visual range, where air vectors, whether manned or unmanned, have now become the primary mode of combat. That's one. Second, there's been evolution of unmanned systems. You've seen this in Ukraine and Russia. We've also seen this now in the Middle East. Iran has no air power, no air force, not even worth the name. They don't have an air force. But the fact is that they've compensated for that by using drones and ballistic missiles. And in case of drones, just the number, in fact, the number of both. So they've gone by the Stalinist dictum of, in warfare, quantity is its own quality, because how many will you shoot down, one odd will get through, and some of that we've seen at American bases in the Middle East. Number three, these methods have given us the new element of pinpoint accuracy and avoidance of collateral damage. Now, I know that when I say avoidance of collateral damage, I'm conscious of the school that got hit by the Americans, Minabi, and that remains a black mark on the Americans and the America-Israel alliance also, because wherever they go, they're asked a question. And that tells you that with these weapons, if you can go wrong, then what can happen? Next point, now you get images and proof for everything. You can't make claims, maine ye kiya, maine wo kiya. That's why Pakistan's claims now on what they claim to have hit in Bunyanun Marsus are not washing anywhere, because they have no proof, whereas we have the proof for what happened on the night of the 7th, early hours of the 7th, as well as on the 10th. Next, you can now strike really deep. The good example is the first day's strike that took out the Ayatollah and his entire leadership in Iran. Then international order has changed, rules have changed, people don't follow the international law. See how Iran is now trying to say that Strait of Hormuz is our territory. It's our territorial water. It is not. It's never been so, but jiski lathi uski bhais. In this case, the lathi is the drone available in multiple, very large numbers. Then in India itself, there is a debate, and fortunately, or in my view, not so fortunately, it's being played out on Twitter by people who are very enthusiastic, who have a little bit of knowledge, their heart's in the right place, but they are confusing things. This indigenous versus imported. In fact, there was a time when an academic said that, what is this obsession that you Indians have with the word indigenous? Why can't you say Indian? That's because almost nothing you made is Indian. You get stuff from outside, you put it together, and you call it indigenous. Don't you realize that almost nothing in the world right now is built entirely by one country? Most fighter planes that countries are building, barring 4 countries, all the others are importing their engines, including the Chinese. They are just reworking on the Russian engines. So we need we need Indianization or make in India indigenization, but we have to be careful. Careful because Pakistan always has the Chinese, they are doing all the work for them. They will make sure their latest comes to the Pakistanis. Pakistanis don't have to invent anything. JF-17 is a Chinese aircraft. As much as Sukhoi MKI is a Russian aircraft. So we have to understand that indigenization is good, make in India is good, but it has limitations because Pakistan has the rest available to them, and they have some American stuff. The Chinese are fully with them. Who do we have? Because Russia has its limitations now. Then networking and electronic warfare have now become critical. And the lessons that we have learned over time, many of those are relevant, but many need to be to be revised now. So I was reading up stuff on this, and I found a paper in Foreign Affairs by which quotes General Doulet of Italy. Doulet, 1921, he said. In 1911, he was the first one to employ air power in combat, and he said that anybody who can anticipate how combat will change will win. You cannot keep fighting the last war. And I see a lot of the debate in India, not just on social media, but on mainstream media, our publications, a lot of the debate is fighting the last war. Or in some cases, because we have such a scar, for example, about 1962, we keep on fighting the 1962 war. And a lot of that came up when negotiations were going on with the Chinese over East Ladakh, because everybody is into territory where you are going. And truth to tell, I got clarity last night when I get magazines and they pile up like this. Then over a weekend I go over all of them. So I found an open magazine, a very fine interview conversation with General Chauhan, very provided clarity also about what's happening in these territorial issues. So that said, I shall now yield the floor to smart people who are going to be talking on this. The two on my left and the two on my right, they are the ones who are going to be talking about making presentations, brief presentations, and after which we will open this to question and hours. We have, will you introduce yourselves instead of my introducing you? Go ahead. You will also do it more with greater precision and more briefly than me.
Good morning, everyone. I am Wing Commander Dhruv Shukla, and I am from the fighter stream.
Good morning, everyone. I am Wing Commander Ashu Saxena from fighters background.
Good morning, everyone. I am Wing Commander Chakrapani Kajla. I am a fighter pilot.
Good morning, everyone. I am Wing Commander Ravi Mishra. I am from fighter stream.
Good morning, I am Wing Commander Nitesh Yadav. I am from fighters background.
Good morning, everyone. I am Shravani Sagun, research fellow at CAPS and from law background. Thank you.
So who's going to make the opening move? Go ahead.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Over the past 100 years, air has revolutionized war fighting. It has become a decisive military instrument. Politicians love it, aim and worship it, and adversaries fear it. The character of war has been changing rapidly, and air has played a central role in addressing that change. Thus, our endeavor today is to map the evolution of air from classical strategy to contemporary limited conflict. However, at the outset, I must admit that during our course of research, we faced difficulty in understanding the term limited conflict. Various authors have defined limited conflict based on their interpretation and prevalent environment. At times, it has been defined as war short of regime change, at times, war of limited objectives, and at times, war of limited effort. In our quest to find suitable definition for understanding limited conflict, various definitions on the subject made only things worse. Thus, in the words of Rear Admiral Raja Menon, we are now in intellectual fog and not making intellectual progress. Victims of a classic case of jargon which confuses more than it clarifies. The syndicate thus felt the need to explore the concept further and understand the nuances of limited conflict. However, during our quest for further examination, we felt the need to first reframe the concept. The rationale for reframing was motivated by, first, as any redefining will only create a bias due to anchoring effect, which Kahneman describes as biasing influence of anchors, which is the word limited in our case. Second was to remove bias associated with the term limited, which confines our thought process, thus enabling a kind of curving approach to things at hand. Third was to get all the learned audience to a conceptual coherence on a topic which has varied interpretation among practitioners, academicians, and strategists. By reframing the concept, it provides what Rear Admiral Raja Menon states as sharpening of judgment and conceptual clarity. Thus, in our effort to explain the concept further, for better understanding and for the purpose of our presentation only, we propose the term the bounded conflict, which is the legitimate use of force for bounded objectives while operating under various ceilings. In no way, this new term questions your understanding on limited conflict. The term only helps in understanding the topic from a different perspective for academic discourse only. Our thought process was motivated by A. Commodore Jarjit Singh, who stated that the significant point to note is that in the past, the wars in the subcontinent were limited in time, scope, goals, etc. by choice. But nuclearization has made wars as an imperative. The important point to note here is that there are various factors influencing the conflict, and second is the prevalence of these limited factors as imperative in contemporary environment. To understand the concept better, let's take the case of a street fight versus a boxing match. Unlike a street fight, where the opponents engage in a fight without any restraint, a bounded conflict is akin to boxing match, where the boxers engage within the bounds of a ring under the supervision of a referee. When this logic is applied to states in the international system, the states represent the boxers, the fight is within the bounds of a variable ring. These bounds can be called as ceilings based on context. In our subsequent slides, we address these ceilings in sequence. The first ceiling is political ceiling. It comprises of political objectives that drive military action. For instance, the Indian political objective during the 1965 war was to thwart Pakistan's aggression. The forays made by the Indian Army inside the Pakistan territory were only to that end, and borders were restored to the status quo as the conflict terminated. The second ceiling is the legal ceiling, wherein the employment of force must be justified through necessity, distinction, and proportionality. Today, a nation should be able to justify its action to the international order. Stacy Goddard, in her book When Right Makes Might, stated the importance of legitimacy of own actions for rising powers in an international system. The third is geographic ceiling, wherein action may have to be restricted on a specific geographical area. For example, the 1948 Kashmir War remained localized and did not spread along the entire front. The fourth is the temporal ceiling, wherein there is time sensitivity to the operating window. This ceiling affects how long an operation is going to continue, since the public support may fade away, outside powers may step in, and legitimacy must be maintained to keep the either conflict going on or bring conflict to an end. And finally, there is escalation ceiling, wherein every action must be judged carefully because even small actions has the propensity to flare up. Escalation is not only driven by deliberate choices, but also by the dynamics of brinkmanship. The likely occurrence of military mishaps, strained communication, and misinterpretation by the adversary are also other factors. In such an ambiguous environment, the margin of error is very small. The 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis is a classic case of brinkmanship. Thus, it must be understood that bounded conflict is not conflict with low ambition. It is shaped by these ceilings, but that does not translate into lesser quantum of force or lower intensity of force application. Having understood the core concept, our syndicate will attempt to answer 4 questions that arose while examining the concept. The first, are existing theories of war adequate for contemporary conflict? Second, what instrument of force is appropriate for bounded conflict? Third, how does APAR operate differently in bounded conflict? And last is how to adapt to a bounded conflict. We now dwell into the first aspect, are existing theories adequate to explain contemporary conflict? Classical theories on war before the nuclear era focused on employment of unrestrained use of force for the achievement of political objectives. Earlier theories had the liberty of time to mature and were refined based on experiences of war. The advent of nuclear weapons brought about the shared risk of destruction and created insecurities among states. Mutually assured destruction compelled a restrained approach in the realm of politico-military behavior. Sovereignty and territorial integrity became core values to the international order under the United States. Thus, looking at the continuum of force application ranges from unrestrained of force at the upper end to restrained use of force at the lower end. There are adequate theories addressing either ends of the force application. However, there is a lack of theory addressing force application in the intervening continuum comprised of above mentioned ceilings. Earlier war of conquest entailed use of force to achieve victory, translating into expansion of territory. This is no longer found legitimate, as sovereignty today is central to international order. However, one should not confuse this with land grabs to be used at the bargaining table or resolution of border disputes by force. What we are discussing is wars of conquest. While the United Nations cannot prevent all cases of transgressions, there are costs associated with these actions. Not all nations are capable of incurring these costs. Conquest has legitimacy, and legitimacy is central to powers and India alike. So if use of force for conquest is not legitimate, then what is force used for? Before we move upon to the utility of force today, it would be beneficial to know how classical theorists viewed the use of force. Sun Tzu says that subduing the enemy without fighting is the acme of skill, essentially pointing to the use of force as a last resort. Cordelius, Sam, Dan, Bhed, and Dund put employment of force based on context. Clausewitz spoke of proportionality of force with respect to political objectives. Liddell-Hart's better peace is perhaps most interesting point of use of force with constant regard to the peace, what you desire. But none of the theorists spoke of what force can achieve, and more importantly, when not to apply it. This is an important aspect to understand for APAR practitioners, since the failure of force application is sometimes equated to failure of APAR. So let us try and understand what force can do and what it cannot do easily. Force can help restore status quo when an adversary tries to disbalance it. It can impose cost on adversary and make subsequent quest miserable. It can signal resolve when word starts to lose credibility. It can deny an adversary a specific objective. It can give you a bargaining leverage, and it may prevent imminent harm. But force also has certain restrictions. It cannot permanently subdue adversary's will. It cannot guarantee political compliance. It cannot control interpretation. It cannot easily lead to surrender. It cannot eliminate escalation risk. And lastly, it cannot replace the statecraft. Thus, the usage of force in the contemporary environment has to be viewed in the above context. To summarize, we defined the concept of bounded conflict, ceilings in bounded conflict, gap in the existing theories, and realities on the use of force in bounded conflict. In our next section, the incoming speaker will attempt to answer what instrument of force is appropriate for bounded conflict.
In a crisis, political leaders do not start by choosing airstrikes or ground invasion in isolation. They look at a menu of instruments of force and influence. This menu stretches from non-military tools to military options. The primary question is not which instrument is most capable, but which instrument best serves the political objective under envisaged constraints. First, can this instrument send a clear signal? The adversary must know who hit them, why, and at what level of resolve. Second, does it risk runaway escalation? Every military act in a bounded conflict is read by the adversary as a signal of intent. Misjudge that, and the ceiling breaks. Third, can the instrument of force be modulated, dialed up, and dialed down as per the requirements of conflict? Fourth, does it fit the timeline? Political window in crisis are short. If your instrument takes weeks to generate effect, the window may have already closed. And finally, does it align with the stated political aim? Because compatibility of political aim with the right instrument creates desired effect. When you run air power through all 5 filters, it is consistently clearing more of them than the alternative. It is fast, it is visible, it is attributable, and it is tunable. When we ponder why air power is attractive in the context of bounded conflict, the following quote by American political scientist Elliot Cohen comes to mind. Air power is an unusually seductive form of military strength, in part because, like modern courtship, it appears to offer gratification without commitment. Air power becomes attractive in bounded conflict because its basic attributes fit the political needs of limited objectives. It can respond rapidly, it can act quickly, and reach targets swiftly. It can shift roles rapidly, be it offense or defense. It can impose cost without instantly creating a territorial commitment. Operation Cactus is a fine example of air mobility operations, where India used transport aircraft to move troops rapidly over a long distance. Air power was able to seize the key airfield in Maldives and restore the government in hours rather than days. The speed of the lift allowed India to outpace the opposition's ability to consolidate control without even dropping a single bomb. Air power offers more reversible postures to the state during various stages of conflict. Posture can be changed quickly. For example, aircraft can be launched, held, recalled, or retasked. Even readiness can be raised or lowered. This is a unique strategic advantage. Air power makes room for tactical or operational pause and creates space for diplomacy and de-escalation too. In bounded conflicts, the scalability of air power lies in how easily one can dial up or dial down the pressure. One can start with limited actions, such as precision strikes against carefully selected targets. If the adversary remains defiant, then the target list and sortie generation rates can be expanded to meet the requirement, thus executing operations while staying below a chosen escalation ceiling and avoiding long-drawn commitments. NATO's 1999 Operation Allied Force over Kosovo is a great example. The campaign began with a relatively narrow set of targets and was incrementally intensified over 78 days until Belgrade accepted the withdrawal. Cases such as Balakot and Opsindur show the same pattern. When political leaders want rapid, visible, and limited action, air power becomes the immediate candidate. It does not mean every crisis can be solved from the air, but it means air power has features that are politically attractive in a bounded conflict. Notwithstanding, the paradox is that the same qualities that make air power attractive makes it receive criticism too. Aviation is perhaps the only profession that volunteers to put itself on trial after every single flight. Most professions review what went wrong after something fails. Aviators do it regardless whether anything went wrong or not. It is absolutely normal for a 30-minute sortie leading into a 4-hour-long self-critical debrief session. Every decision, every input, every second of the flight is broken down. An example of the same is the flight data recorder of Airbus 321, which measures up to 256 parameters per second. The flight data recorder in the debrief, the video feed from the cockpit, the GPS track, they don't lie. And no aviator is allowed to hide behind memory or approximation. Everything an aviator does is documented with a precision that few other professions ever face. Hence, the very data the critics use to question air power effects was generated by aviation culture itself. It exists because aviators chose to record it, review it, and learn from it. It is not a vulnerability. It is accountability in action and should be recognized as such. Airstrikes produce visuals. Drones, satellites, and open source analysts generate visual evidence. Battle damage assessment produces a trail. Success and failure become replayable. This makes air power an easy prey for criticism compared to any other instrument of force. There is also a bias of availability connected to the available visual evidence. As Kahneman's Vaisiati, which is what you see is all there is, applies strongly to air operations. Because air power data is easily available and presentable, that data often becomes the whole story in media. Other instruments of force, on the other hand, may fail more quietly under the fog of war than air power. Critiques viewed air power through the narrow prism of bombing. Misattribution was, however, often ignored by those critiques. Misattribution dismisses air power's real contribution because air power may have to take the blame for a poor political choice. The phrase that air power failed is often too blunt to be useful. If bombing did not compel surrender, we should ask whether surrender was ever a realistic goal. If a target was destroyed, but the enemy's behavior did not change, we should ask whether the target was linked to the outcome we wanted. This distinction matters because air power may be blamed for failures that belong elsewhere, including restrictions imposed by the environment. The argument is air power could be judged, but it must be charged correctly. It should not be worshipped. Rather, it should be critiqued with strong evidence and without any prejudice. Generally, in a war, forces often aim at destroying the enemy's capability or occupying territory. In bounded conflict, the aim shifts. You are not trying to raise everything in sight. You are trying to restore deterrence, compel a specific change in behavior, or send a clear signal while keeping the conflict under control. This changes with the air option, with what the air option is expected to achieve. Every sortie becomes less about sheer damage and more about shaping perception, risk, and resolve. Air power functions, be it air defense, strike, or signaling, are therefore politically tuned. They must deliver effects that matters, but within limits set by escalation, geography, and time. Having argued why air power could be an appropriate choice, I will hand over to the next speaker, who will cover the application of air power in bounded conflict.
In bounded conflict, military strategy operates under various ceilings. These ceilings shape the operation environment and in turn changes the way we fight. It is important to understand this operation environment and analyze how these constraints affect operational application of force. For air power, first and foremost is control of air. Historically, in classical model, effectiveness of control of air was measured against the degree of control over space and time. This meant how much of the sky we owned and for how much time. This assessment was binary. You either had air superiority or you didn't. This was achieved through the physical destruction of the enemy's air force. In today's bounded conflict, air power functions under a political, geographic, and temporal ceiling. This results in employment of air power in continuously contested airspace. The airspace also now has presence of neutrals like civil airliners, and chances of accidental targeting of neutrals increases the risk of unintended escalation or a diplomatic fallout. This changes the objectives from owning the sky to a more sophisticated management of the air environment. This shift acknowledges that absolute control is rarely possible. Instead, we focus on managing the degree of interference from the adversary through a combination of moderated physical force, effective utilization of cyber, electronic warfare, and space to create windows for dynamic opportunity exploitation. Like covered, a bounded conflict may place restrictions on means available to achieve control of air. How then is air power supposed to achieve the desired effects? Herein comes the role of cyber warfare. Modern integrated air defense systems are vulnerable to cyber attacks. Degradation of the same at the right time and in the right area can provide a permissive environment for air operations to be carried out. However, a word of caution here. Cyber is not a magic button. It requires the quiet work of infiltrating networks long before a conflict commences. Such level of penetration is not possible when operations are already underway. They need to be planned beforehand for exploitation later. Therefore, merely possessing cyber warfare capabilities do not matter, and they need to be embedded in the operational framework. Which brings us to the second aspect, that degradation of integrated air defense systems is rarely absolute. The cyber attacks do not disable it. Adversaries can always switch to a decentralized mode of operation, and this requires potent electronic warfare capability for degrading specific emitters and ensure that a permissive environment is maintained. The operational tenets of electronic warfare remain same for bounded conflict. The difference is criticality of achieving desired effects in the first strike, which means that the electronic intelligence database built during peacetime must be effective. And secondly, electronic warfare systems will need to be adaptive. That is to say, accept real-time updates in air, bypassing a conventional EW cycle that we are familiar with. Lastly, while maintaining credible offensive EW capabilities, own systems must be resilient, especially the communications. With cyber and EW deeply integrated in the operational framework of air power, we allow our adversary to remain calm and composed while the world around him crumbles. This brings us to the enabler of cyber EW, that is space. The value of space in military operations is beyond doubt, and the operation connotations remain same for a bounded conflict as well. What changes is again the criticality of space products to the outcome of the conflict. In bounded conflict, space enables political confidence by providing precise intelligence, target discrimination, and credible evidence. Like cyber, space-based capabilities exist at a national level do not achieve the effects on their own. They need integration into operational frameworks of air power. Perhaps it is the time that the air tasking cycle is expanded to integrate cyber and space effects, leveraging the head start made by national agencies in these domains. In bounded conflict, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance gets redefined. It is no longer a tactical tool for targeting information. It is a state's evidence file. ISR facilitates persistent situational awareness and provides the legal and political justification for action. In bounded conflict, ISR must not only answer what and where, but provide evidence for targets' military relevance and define legitimacy. It substantiates a state's message to both national and international audiences. Take the example of Sindoor, where damage caused to terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan was visible in satellite images, which was also confirmed by other sources. Thus, ISR is not only commander's eye, but it is a state's evidence file. All adversaries' fake claims get debunked when independently verifiable evidence is presented through battle damage assessment, which go beyond the traditional methods and exploit human intelligence and open source in coordination with civilian agencies. Remember, while a protracted campaign might absorb occasional errors, a short, visible episode cannot. The combined effects of space, cyber, EW facilitates precision, which is the currency of bounded conflict. Precision allows discrimination and proportionality that gives leaders the confidence to use force. Precision reduces tactical error but cannot compensate for flawed intelligence, adversary countermeasures, and escalation ambiguity. Leading us to the question, can precision fail? The answer is yes. The second question, can it afford to fail? And the answer is no. And hence, we need to analyze the circumstances in which precision might fail. Two things come to light. First, it may fail by mere weapon malfunction, where the hardware itself fails to perform, or second, through the adversary's interference, where the enemy employs countermeasures that disrupt its functioning. The upcoming video is an extreme case of weapon malfunction. This is from the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, wherein a Russian missile meant to defend the refinery malfunctioned and ended up instead destroying the storage tank. This was a case of failure, but even when precision is successful, we must avoid the illusion of control. This means to say, the mistaken belief that because we control the strike coordinates, we also control the strategic outcome or the adversary's interpretation. For example, during 1998 Operation Desert Fox, America struck Iraq with massive airstrikes, hitting 97 targets accurately in an attempt to force Saddam Hussein to allow UN weapon inspectors. They failed, even though the target sets were addressed, leading to critics like Robert Pape again writing about how air power failed to deliver. Thus, precision does not translate into effects unless it is backed by strategy. Air power's role is not just about hitting targets. It is about creating a system that can explain and assess a bounded political effect through institutional expertise and resilience before the situation escapes control. Working under the ceilings in a bounded conflict, it becomes a problem of scarcity. There is less freedom of action, less time, less information, less access, and fewer resources than commanders would ideally want. As Sendil Mullainathan argued, scarcity leads to fall back to heuristics, that is, mental shortcuts or rules of thumb on learned behavior. There is no time for extensive time-consuming analysis, or the window of opportunity is completely lost. Thus, decision-making often falls back again on familiar thumb rules. That changes the way decisions are made. A tolerance for wider uncertainty and ambiguity are essential. Talking of decision-making, the op planning in a bounded conflict must factor surprises due to gaps in intelligence about adversaries' capability or intent. The indigenous technology ecosystem must allow for adaptation in a compressed time frame to sustain operational dominance. Crisis and forced innovation requires technological sovereignty. This is achieved through indigenous capability and defense industrial cooperation mechanisms. These aspects, when combined, generate a nation's comfort with ambiguity and measured response to surprise. Foreign supplier control logistics and technical dependencies become strategic liabilities. These add to the negative effects of scarcity in a compressed and high-stakes situation in bounded conflict. Additionally, the bounded conflict does not replace the principle of decisive military action. Whether conducting a preemptive strike or responding to enemy action, the objective is neither minimum force nor overwhelming force, but an optimum force, the force necessary to achieve the required operational effect while preserving political control and managing escalation. In a first strike, this means exploiting surprise to degrade enemy air capability, create temporary control of the air, and enable follow-on operations without appearing to cross political red lines. In a response strike, force must also account for reduced surprise, a more contested battle space, preservation of combat power, and the need to sustain future operations. The magnitude and intensity is determined by the assessment of enemy behavior, his past escalation patterns, his political resolve, and perceived threshold for retaliation. Thus, the criticality of first strike also lead us to the aspect of reliability of systems and weapons. When commanders give assurance to politicians about their ability to hit the targets, they assume certain performance parameters. Thus, weapon systems must be resilient, able to perform when services like space-based position, navigation, and timing are denied. Secondly, weapons must have diversity in profiles, launch envelopes, and guidance techniques. This is the central shift. The question is not simply whether air power can strike. The question is whether the entire system can create a bounded political effect, explain that effect, assess it quickly, and terminate or continue before escalation escapes control. It now brings us to the final part of our presentation.
In part 4, we move from operational employment to a sharp, localized executive reality. Our task now is to answer the question, how must a rising global power like India configure its doctrine, institutional posture, and decision loops to exploit the unique attributes of air power within the tight constraints of bounded conflict? We must begin by recognizing that India cannot approach air power through a borrowed template. The vast majority of contemporary air power literature is deeply shaped by the American and NATO experience. While that history offers rich case studies and operational data, it emerged from strategic conditions which are fundamentally different from our own. The West has traditionally operated under the luxury of a mature defense industry, expansive global basing, and critically a lack of reciprocal threat to their own homeland. In stark contrast, India's strategic reality is defined by extreme geographic compression. We face proximate nuclear-armed adversaries with highly contested borders. The Western lens dominates our professional discourse simply due to its academic availability, but we must treat it strictly as empirical evidence, never as a doctrinal template. Having established that borrowed template of Western air power employment are based on factors which do not apply to us, let me shed some light on the evolution of air power. Air forces are not defined merely by platforms and technical equipment. They are constructed by their unique national context and strategic problems. This is where we must heed Clausewitz's foundational warning against abstract theorizing detached from the friction of reality. If an air force adopts a doctrine built on flawed abstract assumptions, the institutional consequences are severe. It generates force structures incapable of delivering results or provide military solutions to strategic problems. Before any air power theory can inform strategy, it must pass through the filters of strategic requirements, geography, military experience, and domestic industrial capacity. A contested border proximate air force cannot afford to think like an expeditionary air force. Consider our domestic defense industry. While imported platforms provide short-term technological capabilities, true wartime regeneration, the depth of our munition stockpiles, and spare parts availability depends entirely on domestic industrial capacity. We must evaluate our air power not by its resemblance to the Western template, but by its capacity to achieve specific political objectives. To break the monopoly of Western templates, we should analyze non-Western case studies as valuable correctives. Russia reminds us that highly sophisticated air power can remain strictly continental, structurally tied to the army, and embedded within a ground-centric operational architecture. Sweden offers a masterful example of an air force built entirely around extreme tactical dispersal, survivability, and resilience rather than expeditionary reach. Singapore demonstrates how an air force can directly compensate for an absolute lack of strategic depth through readiness and technological overmatch to build deterrent credibility. However, India's problem set is distinct from all three. We operate under permanent nuclear overhang, within stringent civil military filters facing proximate threats, under constant democratic and international scrutiny, in a highly resource constrained environment. The lesson is not that any one model is superior. Each of these nations developed their own concept of air power suited specifically for them. These cases prove that serious air power is always explicitly national, a tailored military answer to a specific political problem. A frequent critique within our strategic community is the absence of a formally articulated written national security strategy. In the context of bounded conflict, this absence must be treated strictly as an operational datum and not an intellectual alibi. History proves that even states with beautifully written strategic documents, which are mostly part guidance, part wish list, and part political messaging, frequently find themselves trapped in long drawn, inconclusive conflicts. This reality demands that we master the critical bridge between strategy and the strategist, as framed by Colin Gray, who notes that strategy is the bridge connecting military force to political meaning. That is exactly why, historically, the greatest minds of military theory, Kautilya teaching at ancient Takshila, Clausewitz directing the Prussian War College, Mahan transforming the US Naval War College, or Warden shaping minds at the Air War College were all faculty members at premier war colleges of their times. During any intense crisis, the strategist needs more than technical intellect. They must possess the character to enforce what Colin Gray called practical strategic grip over execution. No document or AI can navigate the complex environmental reality of a conflict. It has to be solved by the human element. In a bounded conflict, the strategist must actively guide execution to ensure air power generates highly calibrated specific effects rather than triggering unwanted escalation. Thus, air power should proactively build option sets for likely political needs. If the political need is to restore deterrence after a provocative border conflict, air power must offer punitive but highly bounded options. If the requirement is to prevent imminent harm, it must offer lawful anticipatory profiles. If the need is to avoid a wider war, it must offer reversible readiness and calibrated escalation. If the goal is to maintain international legitimacy, our options must feature evidence backed targeting. If the need is to avoid territorial lock in, it has to offer standoff and air delivered effects. The task is not to wait for perfect clarity. The task is to prepare usable options before perfect clarity arrives. This gets us to the philosophical and operational debate of India's historic strategic restraint. When exercised properly, restraint is an invaluable strategic virtue. It enhances our international diplomatic legitimacy, minimizes the risk of a runaway escalation, and reinforces our global image as a responsible state power. However, when strategic restraint degrades into an automatic, default institutional reflex, it transforms into a dangerous operational burden. It forces India to perpetually absorb the first blow, surrender the immediate account of events, and cede the operational initiative to our adversary before our political machinery is ready to act. Our framework draws a sharp, vital distinction between wise restraint and habitual reactive restraint. Wise restraint is a deliberate, conscious strategic choice made from a position of readiness, preserving our escalation control. Habitual reactive restraint is an institutional default that surrenders the initiative. Thus, we must reframe our understanding of international law. Law must not be viewed merely as institutional brakes designed to paralyze the military options. When properly understood, articulated, and backed by verifiable intelligence, legal thresholds become an explicit enabler of decisive operational action. India does not need to abandon its virtue of restraint. It needs to prevent restraint from becoming an instrument of self harm. Let me clarify on the outset. The syndicate's argument is not a call for delayed retaliatory action or destabilizing strikes against speculative threats. That category is hazardous and must remain strictly restricted. Rather, the core of our argument is lawful initiative. The legal and operational capability to act decisively when an adversarial threat is already in motion or when the last clear window of opportunity to prevent avoidable harm is rapidly closing. Towards this, we must analyze the 2019 Balakot airstrikes, whose enduring institutional value lies in how it perfectly operationalized the concept of lawful initiative. It stood as an example of a single aerospace action, simultaneously anchored in clear international legal justification, absolute operational necessity, and highly calibrated strategic signaling. The serious Indian debate is not preventive war. It is whether India can act at the last clear opportunity before avoidable harm. This brings us to the synthesis of our presentation, the architectural bounds to adapt air power for a bounded conflict. One must reject both the uncritical imitation of Western abundance based concepts and the strategic paralysis of default reactive restraint. The requirement is a contextual model, lawful in justification, reversible in posture, enablers as prerequisites, political military speed matching the air power tempo, proactive evidence communication, and a self reliant industrial capability. Ultimately, the final test of air power in a highly volatile environment will not be measured by the raw volume of ordnance it can drop. The true test is whether our airspace power can decide, act, justify, and successfully terminate an operation within the bounds of a bounded conflict. With this closing statement, we conclude our presentation and are open for discussion.
Well, thank you. This is a bit of a surprise for me. I think it's the first panel I'm chairing where I feel so unwanted and so unimportant, because I've never had to ask anybody to cut down their time or send slips to them, which is very unusual for Delhi. So please stay that way. I don't think others in Delhi will learn. Delhi conference circuit will remain the way it is, but this is a surprise. We'll open this to questions. Couple of things. The idea of bounded conflict. All my readers know that I think in terms of cricket or Hindi film music. So if you look at cricket, what you're seeing right now is not a T20ization of combat, but you're seeing the next step, which is a super over. So conflict now maybe is a super over, or maybe a series of super overs. If you look at Op Sindoor, maybe it was 2 super overs. So it's very short, very intense, and evidence for everything is available. Number 2, air power. The understanding of air power has completely changed. I've grown up in a country where air power was seen to be escalatory. That's why it was not used in 62. That's why the decision to use air power in 65 was seen to be such a big thing. That's why even the one air power action that maybe shortened the war by a week, that is those rockets that went into the governor's house in Dhaka and hastened the surrender process, that was not given adequate attention in our debate going ahead. Now this has changed. Now air power is the first instrument to be used, genuinely the tip of the spear, and service of choice for limited conflict. That's a complete change, and that's why I think discussions like this are important. Now it's open to questions. I know all of you follow the rules, so I don't have to repeat them to you. Introduce yourself and ask a short question.
Sir, good morning. I'm Group Captain Minas. First of all, panel, thank you very much for this excellent presentation. I happen to know all the 3 officers to the right of the chair, and it's really heartening to listen to all of you speak about AIPA. My question is specifically for the chair, and this comes from having worked at MPIDSA for about a year as a research fellow, and I have this opportunity to see the air power and its manifestations in the Indian environment from a civilian perspective. So, Chair, what are your thoughts on operationalizing the narrative and the perception as part of Indian Air Force's future air strategy? We've seen Balakot, we've seen Operation Sindoor, and it is but all too apparent that there is an institutional reticence to address this cognitive gap. And who better than you to give us a framework or your thoughts, or how does one go about operationalizing this gap, including it as part of our formal air power strategy?
Well, thank you. Usually, questions are not for the chair, but for others. But now that you've asked me, I will tell you that there are some issues with us, and those came up in Op Sindoor also, and Balakot. Balakot was a bigger failure because we actually took a whole day. The first announcement that an attack, a strike had taken place came from the Pakistani ISPR at I think 4:30 in the morning. They put out a tweet. We said nothing. The first communication from our side was I think 9:30 or 10 o'clock. And then in the evening, a kind of press conference was held on the lawns of South Block in fading light, where a senior officer displayed part of a AMRAM wreckage. Right? It was in open. Acoustics were poor. Lighting was ridiculous. It looked like we were in a crisis and not the other side. So it was handled very badly. This time problems were different. I think one is a political problem, and I say this here because I can say this, that the emphasis seems to be on communicating inwards to your domestic audience. Domestic audience usually will be convinced. They are all on your side. We are all on your side. There are no options or choices. This is the default position. But this then becomes a liability as we go ahead. And that's where I think a lot more candor, which used to be the practice. I would say lots of books have been read here. I'm sure Air Chief Marshal P.C. Lal's books also being read, just for the need for candor. I mean, he mentions the losses on day one of the 71 war. Did anybody even flinch for a moment? Because he and the Air Force were not addressing their audiences back home. They were achieving an objective as soon as possible, as fast as possible. And I think that clarity has to come back. That I will say from my side. I will give you a little example. Armed forces usually are conservative, which is understandable. Armed forces are conservative. They should be conservative, but they overdo it. In the days I used to be a reporter, maybe 45 years ago, we had been taken to cover the Gidon presentation by the president. Cavalry mein hota hai. Gidon presentation to 20th Lancers in Sangrur. And driving, I used to work in Chandigarh then with the Indian Express, 1978. So driving from Chandigarh to Sangrur, every 2 kilometers, the army and the cavalry, there was a little thing saying, welcome President of India, Gidon presentation, 20th Lancers at Sangrur, etc. But we were told at the end of the day that आपको लिखना चाहिए somewhere in the western sector. तो फिर हमने कहा ऐसी बात है, दुश्मन को confuse ही करना है, तो हम somewhere in the eastern sector बोलते हैं. Then they'll be searching for 20th Lancers in the eastern sector. So sometimes we overdo it, and that becomes counterproductive. And it's not a wrong thing to learn from the adversary, learn from the Pakistanis, because they change the emphasis of the operation. Our emphasis was to strike these targets, and our emphasis then, because we gave them the option to calm down on 8th morning, 7th morning, they did not take it. Then we had to pay back. Those were our 2 super overs, and we won those. Whereas the Pakistanis shifted it entirely to air-to-air combat. And that is something which is purely a communication, I won't even say tactical, but a strategic move, which for them was effective. So those are things that I, as somebody who's a user of your communication, I can mention. So, and after this, no questions to me, please. Raise your, yes.
Good morning to the panel. Thank you for the very informative talk. I'm Air Commodore Baines from Director of Ops Surface. For the panel, I have 2 quick observations to make and one possible suggestion. The 2 observations is one in terms of the doctrinal use of the term bounded conflict. In my opinion, it probably should not be promulgated as a doctrinal term, especially to the field units, because in the field units and the larger context of combatants, you need to be talking in terms of end states your terminal conflict positions, as well as the means to reach them. The second aspect is that while we talk in terms of the end states, we are always been defining as what I've seen also in this talk in terms of how we perceive it. But the more important part is in terms of what are the escalation matrix is what the enemy would take. Cases in point is that we had this escalation matrix deemed out, and we were able to achieve the conflict termination for our operations. But when you look in terms of the US operations as well as the Russian operations, they're not been able to achieve because from their end, they thought they've achieved the military aims, but the adversary has thought otherwise. Other aspect is that conflict termination always is defined by the person who has the advantage. If you did not have the advantage, you would not have been looking to propose it. So that becomes a point that while we are having the opportunity of advantage, you always must have windows to your advantage, wherein you can seek conflicts after you have achieved your objectives. And the suggestion I have is that in this entire domain of ISR, would also recommend that of the space domain awareness in terms of being aware of the SSA, that is space situation awareness, the link segment as well as the ground segment, as part of the broader ISR campaign, so that I have a very good, I would say, assessment of the true enemy capabilities which can be brought to bear. Thank you.
Is it addressed to anybody? Do you want
To the chairs, to the panels.
does anybody want to take it? I suggest that one take it. Yes.
First question.
Sir, I'll take on the first question. Basically, we are not prescribing the use of bounded conflict. There are terms, people have understanding, and I have clarified that part in my beginning of my presentation, that we are not questioning your understanding on limited conflict. We are just proposing a framework and looking how we see the present realities of use of force. So in that perspective, I would just like to bring in a confusion which happens in the minds of a strategist. So he's holding the strategy bridge. On the end, one end is the ends, and other is the means. So if one is defining with the limited means and other is defining in terms of limited objectives, the confusion is in the minds of the strategist. However, if you apply this analogy to a boxing ring where two states are fighting, and the ceilings are variable, the ceilings of the boxing rings are variable. So the strategist has to find a maneuvering space wherein he can place his force in a better manner, maneuver himself, and give a punch. That's our submission to the audience.
So we are no way saying that it should be a doctrinal term. It is something we used for the purpose of the presentation. And rest of the points, well taken, sir. Rest are the observations, and we have noted them, sir.
Yeah, I'm Group Captain Chaudhary. I just wanted to ask to the panel, bounded conflict is again an instrument of strategy for achieving a political aim. Now, if that be so, why do you think air power is most suited for utilization in a bounded conflict?
Who's taking it?
I'll take it.
You take. Go ahead.
Sir, we have clearly brought out in our presentation that air power cannot solve everything. But what we are proposing here, our argument is that air power is one of the most appropriate choices. And the reasons for that, we have highlighted the two domains, basically. As far as ops is concerned, we are talking about scalability. That is dialing up or dialing down the pressure. That facet is unique for the air power. And second is reversibility, wherein the ability to redeploy, withdraw, and change postures. So in a way, reversibility comes under the posture side and scalability in the operational side. And these two are unique to air power. And that's why we are making this argument that it is one of the most appropriate forces.
Partha? I didn't know people in the front row were allowed to ask questions. Go ahead, Partha. No, wait for the microphone. Mr. Partha Sarthi is a distinguished former Foreign Service officer, was our High Commissioner to
My
Pakistan.
experience in life in 1965 was at the receiving end of Pakistani artillery,
Right.
and then being
He's
ambassador,
ex-army.
being an ambassador with them and dealing there. But I'm going to be serious this question on missiles, and frankly, this is new to me. The Air Force runs
Microphone.
the Air Force runs missiles all across. In warfare, you're going to need to run missiles from our side, also from the ground. There is a lot from the air, lot from the ground, on artillery fire, on really, and with missiles now going far beyond artillery. The missile capacity to hit at much greater distance now exists. I just want to know how you think you're going to coordinate with the missile world which is coming up, which has not been there in any earlier war, which you are going to find because my Pakistani friends get a lot of Chinese stuff which will go much further.
I think you haven't spoken, you haven't answered the question yet, and then there are more on side.
So I'll cover about, we have covered about how we have to achieve effects. The vectors to achieve effects are spread amongst various, we have not spoken much about the platforms to be used per se. What we are looking at is what effect can be achieved and whether it can be, as we have covered, how evidence is important, whether that can be achieved with the kind of vectors we are using. So drones and missiles augment air power in that manner. However, the aspect of first strike and achieving assurance over the target has to be addressed by the quality of weapons, diversity of guidance, which cannot be provided by missiles alone. Integration, how it will be achieved is not per se a part of what we have covered, sir. And they basically augment the aspect that we have covered.
Okay, please go ahead. Shravani.
So, about answering the question, that's something that has not been used, for example, missile or any such, any such.
A little bit closer to the microphone and a bit louder.
Okay, sir. So about that, it is very important, first of all, to have that counter abilities. For example, counter space abilities. And when we talk about warfare, we talk about electronic warfare, we talk about cyber warfare. But most importantly, we often miss legal narratives or narrative warfare, which is very important. And if I may slightly different from what we have talked about, but it is important to understand that how outer space treaty or how law regulates. It is very much justifiable that we develop those counter space abilities to attack and be ready in that position to tackle that. So that is very important, and to have evidence based what other cohort was highlighting. So.
Well, thank you. I think we are running out of time. Do we have the permission to overrun this? One last question. Yes, please, in the back.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Prajwal. I'm an intern at ICWA and a student of geopolitics. Thank you so much to the panel for the comprehensive presentation. And my question is, how do you read bounded conflict as an effective response to what we see today as asymmetric warfare against a non-reconcilable adversary? And if I may expand, do you suppose the ethics of just war theories are anyway in contradiction to the kind of warfare we see today?
You haven't answered yet? Ashuka topic. Okay.
So if you see the framework which we have provided, I believe it is the most, in a very appropriate manner, describes where are we right now. So in our terms of bounded conflict, the use of force, which is legitimate use of force with the bounded political objectives and with various ceilings which we have defined as political, legal, time, and geography and escalation. So if you combine all these factors together, you will be able to address the situation hand in a better manner. Just going by binary use of force, either as a win-win situation or a losing situation, will not give you the insight into the contemporary realities. You need to understand what force can give you, what force cannot give you. And when you understand that, you'll be able to apply the strategy and being in a better position as a strategist. So as I said, understand under the analogy of a boxing match. The strategist role is to find an adequate maneuvering space, which is constantly shrinking, expanding, and have your first move as a best option available to you.
And I think are you suggesting something to me? Okay, I think we are pushing our luck, but please go ahead.
Vice Admiral Mahendru retired. So thank you, panel. I think excellent presentation. And I was happy to see the naval tinge. I haven't spoken to you all on Corbett and Mahan, so that's great. But I just like to bring out, I mean, it seemed to me that the bounded conflict concept seemed to be largely air power driven. So have you all must have, of course, because of lack of time, did not present it. Wanted to see what here. What are your thoughts on the joint participation in this bounded conflict? Where does it come in? And of course, the Air Force the air power may lead or be the van or like we said, the tip of the spear. But where does it come in this limited concept that you are proposing?
Can I just respond to that by saying that the remit of the panel was to look at air power, not joint operations. But if anybody wants to respond to that.
Rightly covered, sir. We have covered the application of air power in bounded conflict, and from where we are going to generate air power may vary across the services and led by the institutional knowledge that the Air Force has. So speaking of targeting itself, if we have to take it across to a different direction, then vectors can be getting airborne from any of the platforms, and the coordination will be done at the appropriate level. So it was beyond the scope of the presentation, but it is definitely a part of it.
Well, I'll just leave a couple of questions in conclusion, and in the hope that they'll be provocative, because all of you are practicing air warriors. So I know that all of you know about air denial, air parity, air superiority, air supremacy. Maybe it's a good debate as to how these apply to the three conflicts we've seen: Ukraine, the Middle East, and Op Sindoor. If you see Ukraine, initially Ukraine very successfully carried out air denial because Russians realized that their air force did not have sufficient self-protection against ground defenses. Then you got to a situation when Russians, and that persists, Russian air force does not get within 250 kilometers of the protected airspace from the Ukrainian side, although the Ukrainians have really had no air force. Now they have a little bit of air force. What's now happening is, and this happened yesterday, Russians fire these glide missiles and Kinzhals from about 200 kilometers away. Whatever air power Ukrainians have, MiG-29s and now some F-16s, those are being used to try and shoot down these missiles and also long-range drones. So there is some kind of parity there because nobody is willing to go in any defended airspace. If you look at our situation on day 3, on the 10th, definitely there was air superiority because when IAF went up in the payback, then PAF did not rise in the defense of their most wanted targets. That was for some time. The first night, I would say, because they were able to retaliate, were they able to achieve some kind of a parity at that moment? It's a matter of debate that should be there. And then supremacy. The US and the Israelis have complete air supremacy over Iran. Iran has no air force. Its air defenses are very basic. Maybe they shot down the odd aircraft, but very basic. But see how the Iranians have tried to counter it just by the number of the both of the Shahed drones of various kinds and also the ballistic missiles, because they've tried to achieve a political objective, not a tactical objective. If they hit a couple of American bases in the Arab world, whatever the damage, maybe the damage not so much, very few lives lost, etc., some equipment damaged, but for the Arab world, this is very scary because the Arab world, the GCC countries, they have the fanciest equipment and armed forces. They have everything it takes to fight a war except the will to fight a war. And the Iranians know it. And that's why anytime anything falls anywhere in any of the GCC countries except UAE, everybody then gets scared and is putting pressure on Trump to call it a day. So even in a situation of complete air supremacy on the other side, the Iranians have found a way of achieving some political and strategic objectives. So these are the points I thought I'll leave with you. I hope they will be provocative. Excellent panel. Thank you very much. And great questions and great discipline from all of us, but that is to be expected. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair and speakers, for such an illuminating session, and I'm sure it has given our audience much to ponder over. May I now request General Anil Chauhan, former Chief of the Defense Staff, to kindly come up on the stage and felicitate our participants.
Yeah, I don't, sir.
May I now request everyone to kindly come forward for a group photograph? Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a huge round of applause for our speakers and chair for such an engaging and thought-provoking session. With this, we have... Are we done? With this, we have come to the end of session 1. May I now request all of you to kindly join us for lunch at the foyer and be seated in the auditorium by I request you all to be kindly seated. We will now begin with our next session. The chief guest for the day is, ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? I request you all to be kindly seated and please maintain silence. We are now beginning with session 2. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all to session 2. Our chief guest for the day is Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh, Chief of the Air Staff. Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh was commissioned into the fighter stream of the Indian Air Force on December 21st, 1984. He is an alumnus of National Defense Academy, Defense Services Staff College, and National Defense College. He is a qualified flying instructor and an experimental test pilot with over 5,000 flying hours on a variety of fixed and rotary wing aircraft. During his career, he has held a number of staff and command appointments before taking over as the 28th Chief of the Air Staff on September 30th, 2024. For his distinguished service, he has been awarded the Param Vishishta Seva Medal and Ati Vishishta Seva Medal. This session will be by the participants from the College of Aerospace Warfare. The team will delve into the following topic: future-proofing aerospace power, innovation, integration, and force design. We have the honor of Air Chief Marshal R.K.S. Bhaduria, former Chief of the Air Staff, to chair this session. May I now request the chair and the panelists to kindly come up on the stage and occupy the respective chairs. Air Chief Marshal Rakesh Kumar Singh Bhaduria is an alumnus of the prestigious National Defense Academy. He graduated from the Air Force Academy with the coveted Sword of Honor and was commissioned in the Fighter Stream of Indian Air Force on June 15, 1980. He has over 4270 hours of experience on 27 types of fighters as well as transport aircraft, and holds the unique distinction of being an experimental test pilot, a CAT A qualified flying instructor, and a pilot attack instructor. He completed his master's in defense studies from Command and Staff College, Bangladesh. During his illustrious career, spanning almost 4 decades, the Air Chief Marshal has held a number of significant field and staff appointments. In recognition of his meritorious service, the Air Chief Marshal has been awarded the Vayu Sena Medal in 2002, Ati Vishishta Seva Medal in 2013, and Param Vishishta Seva Medal in 2018. He was appointed as Principal Honorary ADC to the President of India on October 1st, 2019. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Future-proofing aerospace power, innovation, integration, and force design. I think the absolutely apt next step to discuss after the morning session. If aerospace for every future scenario of conflict or utilization in whatever manner that it comes up, is if aerospace is going to be the tip of the spear or the sword arm or whichever way you term it, then it is important to future-proof. It is important to look at innovation and how we integrate, how we capitalize on it, look at how we do our own capacity capability building, one of the issues that came up in the previous session, how we do the integration, and how are we going to do the force design for the future. So everything new, I think de novo thinking on many issues required. I'm sure everyone present here is eagerly looking forward to this session and the expertise of the panelists here to really throw light on the subject that is so important. So I will not take much of your time. I will quickly do the introductions. I will keep the introductions short. They're all experts in their own field. Wing Commander Khatri, he will be the first one to speak on my extreme right. From the fighter stream, commissioned 2009 from NDA and Staff College, expert on the Type 75, more than 1700 hours, and a qualified flying instructor. Has a lot of hours instructing on the PC 7 Mark II, and is currently on one of the forward bases. We have Captain Unnikrishnan on the left from the Navy, commissioned in July 99 into the executive branch. He is a Naval Air Operations Officer on the Tu-142 Maritime Reconnaissance, a huge aircraft, and has done human service for the Indian Navy. He is Staff College qualified, has huge operational experience, and is presently Joint Director at Naval Operations Data Processing. Ravi Kumar, he's going to be speaking next. He's commissioned in December 10, a CAT-A MSO on Su-30 MKI. A lot of experience. He has done the combined graduation course at TACD, that is the top end of the tactical deployment course. He's DS graded. Also from NDA, has done staff course. From RTAF, I couldn't get that. RTAF is? Royal Thai Air Force, sorry, I didn't get that, and is presently at as directing staff on in cause. Wing Commander Tejas Kawale, and I had the opportunity of meeting him recently, and his parents had a great vision and named him Tejas before Tejas was named Tejas. That I'm aware. He has huge operational experience on Su-30, has flown Hawk 132, is instructor more than 2,400 hours, has instructed on Hawk 132, and is currently in commanding one of the operational training squadrons. So welcome to the Chief of Air Staff, Chief Marshal A.P. Singh. So far we have just started the introduction. I was just introducing the team for the next session, which is future proofing of aerospace power, innovation, integration, and future design. Just to update you. Okay, last speaker will be Wing Commander Medvi Chandra. He was commissioned into fighter stream in June 2010, also from NDA on the MiG-29, has a huge amount of operation experience, was part of Balakot and also Operation Sindoor. I'm sure you can catch up with him and get some insights later after this session. So very, very competent panel. I will not take any more of your time. I would request Wing Commander Khatri to start.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The contours of modern conflict have changed. Wars are no longer won by the side with the most advanced equipment. They are won by the one that learns and adapts faster and brings these capabilities together at the right moment. It is on this premise that we present our research on future-proofing aerospace power through innovation, integration, and force design. The challenges to aerospace power have grown across the entire spectrum of conflict, from cheap, one-way attack micro and mini drones on one end, which have seemingly democratized air power, to state-of-the-art capabilities ranging from hypersonic weapons, integrated air defenses, manned and unmanned teams incorporating AI and stealth, while also leveraging space, cyber, and the electromagnetic spectrum. The range and pace of these threats has compounded. Every one of these threats, the low cost and the high end alike, are already present in the security environment that India faces today. The instinct, when faced with such a diverse spectrum, is to counter every technology in a piecemeal manner. But such an approach misses the forest for the trees. Aerospace power is highly sensitive to technology. One breakthrough can shift the balance overnight. Therefore, building a counter technology may not be the complete solution. A new capability only delivers its full effect when the force absorbs and employs it. And until that technology can mature, the advantage often lies in how effectively we combine the tools that we already have. So the real challenge is not only technological, but also structural. What is missing is a mechanism that keeps refining force structures, testing them, proving them, and turning them into working models to keep pace with the technological threat landscape. This leads us to our central argument. By building a mechanism to continuously design, test, and prove new force structures to leverage multiple domains, the IEF can achieve and sustain decision superiority by matching the rate of technological absorption with technological innovation. In our research, we started by looking at the challenges facing air power today, asking how does one fight in an environment where threats emerge from multiple domains at once. One of the answers is to simultaneously leverage individual domains through multi-domain operations, fighting with multiple capabilities fused together faster than the adversary can respond. However, MDO is not something you can buy or declare. It's an innovation problem. It demands that an organization change how it thinks and how it is structured. This naturally leads us to force design. The force today is structured for fighting within single domain. To combine effects across domains, it has to be restructured around effects and not the platforms it happens to own. But restructuring an entire air force overnight is neither wise nor possible. So the final question was, how do you innovate safely? And that is a central proposition. A national aerospace battle innovation hub, or as we would subsequently refer to as NUB. Think of it as a testing ground for new multi-domain force structures and new ways of fighting, to be tried on a small scale, proven or discarded before the learning so achieved can be leveraged to find a force level solution. And that is the thread of this entire research. From the threat to MDO as the answer, to innovation as the means, to force design as the change, to a permanent structure where that change can be tested and proven. Not a single fix, but a way of continuously staying ahead. Now, every step of this roadmap rests on one idea not yet unpacked. So, let us first understand multi-domain operations. Multi-domain operations, in simple terms, is the coordinated use of capabilities across land, sea, air, space, cyber, and the cognitive domain, faster than the adversary can understand, decide, and respond. Its organizing idea is convergence, bringing together different domains to achieve a single effect, opening a window of advantage and exploiting it before it closes. Several major powers have already built their own versions of such innovation initiatives. The United States, through its combined joint all-domain command and control program, is trying to link any sensor to any shooter across every service. The United Kingdom builds integration in from the very start, not bolted on later, but designed in from day one. Russia learned the hard way that linear kill chains are lethal when intact, but brittle under pressure. One node down and the whole chain stalls. Israel, on the other hand, proves that you do not need the largest force. Discipline and integration alone can deliver more than any mass ever could. China is the one to watch out for. It is moving from today's network-centric warfare towards AI-driven, intelligentized warfare, letting the machines help decide and not just connect. Across all of them, the same few truths keep surfacing. The real center of gravity is the data architecture, how information moves, and not the platform that carries it. Success is measured by the speed of decision. Delegated command is what holds a force together when communications degrade. And lastly, doctrine means nothing without a structure to back it. Where countries built organizations to deliver their doctrine, capabilities followed. Where they did not, it stayed on paper. India's formal entry into this space is the Joint Doctrine for Multi-Domain Operations, released in August 2025. It calls itself a first step, and rightly so. Its most distinctive feature is recognizing the cognitive sphere as a sixth domain and calling for a whole-of-nation approach involving space agencies, DRDO, and the private defense sector working alongside the three services. Measured against global practice, however, it remains an intent not yet matched by procedures and structure. Military decision cycles are currently not effectively synchronized with civil agencies to achieve a whole of nation reality. Now, these gaps at their root point to an innovation problem. Getting there, however, as stated by Rosen in his book Winning the Next War, requires structural innovation to match vision with organization, and also that MDO be treated as an operational priority, not a conceptual exercise. Air forces have historically been among the first to absorb disruptive technology. A force already linking precision effects, space-based navigation, electronic warfare, and airborne surveillance within one sortie is already practicing the broad logic that MDO demands. The foundation is already established. The experimentation and implementation must now follow. So the answer is not a better aircraft or a quicker counter to the latest threat, but the institutional ability to keep designing, testing, and proving new ways of fighting continuously and at speed. That is what separates a force that stays ahead from one that is forever catching up. But this raises the real question. If innovation is the answer, what makes some organizations adapt quickly while others with the same technology fall behind? To build a force that innovates by design, we first have to understand how innovation actually works and why it so often fails.
Military scholar Rosen defines military innovation as an organization wide shift in how a military thinks, organizes, and fights. It aligns new technologies with new tactics, structures, and doctrine. often making older ways of operating obsolete. Innovation is inherently difficult because it requires existing institutions to invest in uncertain future while questioning capabilities, structures, and concepts that have long defined their identity and success. Military innovation may be broadly defined into four categories as shown. These, though describe different aspects of innovation, are not mutually exclusive and they constantly interact and reinforce each other. Technological innovation refers to the development, adaptation, or military application of new technologies that significantly enhance combat effectiveness, either by reach, lethality, or decision making. Emergence of stealth technology, precision weapons, autonomous systems are examples of such innovation. Doctrinal innovation, on the other hand, refers to the development of new principles, concepts, and intellectual frameworks that guide how military forces understand and conduct warfare. It shapes how militaries think about the employment of force and the nature of conflict. Operational innovation refers to the development of new methods for organizing, integrating, and employing military forces at the campaign and the theater level. It focuses on how combat power is employed and results in total effects that are more than sum of individual capabilities. Network-centric and synchronized operations undertaken during Operation Desert Storm is an apt example. Organizational innovation refers to the changes in structures, institutions, and command arrangements through which military capabilities are generated and employed. It directly alters established distributions of authority, resources, and professional roles, making it one of the most challenging forms to implement. Also, this is the innovation that we have addressed through a roadmap in our research. Militaries are inherently designed to ensure reliability, standardization, and efficient execution of established procedures. While these attributes are essential for operative effectiveness and organizational control, they also inhibit experimentation and risk taking that innovation demands. This leads to challenges that can be classified into four categories as shown. These are the challenges that we have proposed to suitably address in the course of our research. Typically, defense procurement processes change at a much slower pace than technology because the operating logic is strict adherence to procedure and accountability. Let's look at how we are addressing this challenge. India's IDEX initiative demonstrates agile acquisition by funding startups and MSMEs through competitive challenges, rapid prototyping, and iterative user trials rather than traditional procurement cycles. Military institutions tend to remain committed to legacy force structures and modes of warfare long after their strategic advantages begin to erode. An example would be the challenge faced by US Army in reorienting force structures, training systems, operational concepts from counterinsurgency to great power competition post-Afghanistan war. Traditionally, militaries have prioritized procedural compliance and error avoidance over experimentation and learning. Hence, tolerance for failures is often low and risk aversion is high. Genuine innovation requires institutions to view setbacks as an inherent part of learning. ISRO's iterative launch vehicle development demonstrates the test, fail, learn, and iterate philosophy. Earlier setbacks in the SLV-3, ASLV, and GSLV programs were systematically analyzed and incorporated into subsequent designs, ultimately leading to highly reliable launch vehicles such as the PSLV and the LBM-3. Military innovation begins in classrooms, where future leaders learn either to challenge prevailing assumptions or to perpetuate them. A PME framework that prioritizes compliance over curiosity risks preparing officers for the last war rather than the next. Its true purpose must be to cultivate critical thinkers capable of questioning orthodoxy, imagining alternatives, and driving institutional adaptation. Indian Air Force's Warfare and Aerospace Strategy Program, conducted at CAW and CAPS, is an apt example of a PME framework that, through broad-based academic study, cultivates a culture of critical inquiry, research, and intellectual debate. The program strengthens the intellectual foundations for military innovation, future aerospace doctrine, and force design. True value of military innovations is realized only when they are integrated into force structures and operational concepts, thereby shaping how a military prepares for and fights future wars. This brings us to the central role of force design that integrates and translates innovation into combat effectiveness. Force design in aerospace power is a process of aligning technology, doctrine, organization structures, human capital, and command and control arrangements into an integrated warfighting system capable of bringing convergence of effects across all the domains through the medium of air. The question that emerges next is what does the future warfare demand from an aerospace power to achieve and sustain a decisive advantage?
To answer the question, while analyzing future operational environment through the lens of FX-led thinking, we identified 5 tangible demands. Demands that future warfare will place on aerospace power. Each of these demands will require an institutional response to achieve specific operational effects and keep aerospace force design relevant. I will walk through each of these demands one by one. The first demand identified is speed. Future aerospace targets will be far more mobile, dispersed, and time sensitive. The windows for targeting will be short. The aerospace institutional response should be to integrate multi-domain sensors with AI-assisted prioritization tools and to adapt a pre-planned aerospace domain shooter grid with clearly defined pre-delegated authorities. Remember, the bottleneck has seldom been the weapon. It has often been the decisions. The desired operational effect must leverage multiple domains by design. A sensor to decision to effect cycle that draws on multi-domain inputs and delivers faster effects through targeting. A transition that is faster than the adversaries. The next identified demand is resilience. Airfields, radar complexes, command nodes, and logistics networks will be subject to attack on day one. Hence, survival cannot be an afterthought. The aerospace institutional response should be distributed basing, redundant C2 structures, and hardened logistics, all with rapid recouping capability. The desired operational effect has to be multi-domain, with resilience built by substituting for aerospace domain shortfalls with solutions from other domains. For example, if a base housing EW escorts is hit, the shortfall can be made up by ground-based jammers and EW UAV teams. The next demand is convergence. Modern battles require synchronized effects across domains. Winning in a single domain may not be enough anymore. An institutional response to the demand for convergence should be to integrate the capabilities of multiple domains into a single planning and execution architecture right from the very outset. The operational effect sought would be to synergize effort, enabling exploitation of windows of opportunities that no single domain by itself can create. The fourth demand is distributed and pulse operations. To survive in a contested battle space, we would need to disperse. However, to strike decisively, we would need to concentrate our efforts. Institutional response should be a task-organized, multi-domain packaging, capable of dispersion to ensure survivability, yet flexible enough to concentrate efforts for intense operations during short windows of opportunity. The desired effect is reduced vulnerability and greater operational agility. The final demand identified is continuous adaptation. Every adversary studies what defeated them and adapts. The force that stops learning first loses next. Institutional response is wargaming, operational experimentation with after-action reviews, feedback loops, and PME. Effect sought is an institutional capacity to learn and outlearn the adversary. These 5 demands are not independent, they are connected. For example, speed without resilience collapses the moment you are disrupted. Similarly, integration without learning may work in an exercise, but fail the first time a thinking adversary adapts. So, force design treats all 5 as one connected system, converging effects across multiple domains. Post-analyzing institutional responses and the effects sought by future warfare, the next logical question is, how can aerospace power achieve these effects in the future? The answer we arrived at is mission-oriented force packaging that leverages capabilities across domains. These are task-oriented combination of sensors, effectors, and command nodes, all built around a specific effect. Not a permanent unit, a repeatable template reshaped to the threat at hand. Let me give you a few examples. The first example is of counter A to AD package. The effect this package is designed to produce is a temporary window, one that allows follow-on forces to maneuver into space previously denied to them. To achieve this, the package is designed to force open a seam in the adversary's integrated defense fabric. The package therefore combines kinetic and non-kinetic capabilities across multiple domains. Together, these capabilities systematically erode adversaries' area denial architecture and enhance the maneuverability of our aerospace forces. Every component in this package serves one purpose: to create that window and keep it open. For the next package, we once again begin with the effect. Effect sought here is operational continuity, the ability to sustain air operations even after the base has been struck or disrupted. This is not just about surviving an attack. It is about continuing to generate combat power post an attack. It layers counter-UAS capability, short-range AD with cyber protection and redundant communication network. When attrition creates shortfalls in our own capability, other domains are drawn on to compensate, ensuring the base continues to function as an integrated node with a larger operational system. Every element of this package serves one purpose, which is sustaining operational output from a base that has been attacked. We also work through several other packages: a time-sensitive targeting package, an integrated air defense counter-strike package to protect critical assets, early warning and rapid response package for calibrated warning and attribution, a maritime denial and strike support package extending aerospace power into maritime denial and strike spheres. I will not go through all of them today. The key point is these packages are only illustrative, not a final list. The value is not in the specific package, it lies in the method. Start with the effect, then build the combination. Since the IF cannot transform everything at once, we built a three-phase roadmap with a way to measure progress at each phase. The immediate phase is about design clarity and experimentation. Before committing resources at scale, we need to clarify what we are actually trying to build. The actions are defining force structures and mission packages that leverage multiple domains along with mapping their command and control hierarchies. This is followed by wargaming and exercises to institutionalize learning. The measures of success here are faster sensor to effect time and clearer command authority, which will be evident in the exercises and war games. The medium-term phase turns early design into architecture. Cross-domain integration must become structural instead of being improvised. The actions include building data fusion processes that feed MDO planning cells with C2 redundancies. The measure of success is an aerospace force that remains resilient and interoperable in a degraded environment. The long-term phase is the hardest. It is about changing how the institution itself operates. Actions span acquisitions, doctrines, and careers, which include incorporating MDO requirements in the acquisition stage itself, revising PME, consolidating distributed operations doctrines, building feedback loops, and integrating specialist career pathways. The measures of success span multiple dimensions, namely sustained readiness, maturity in mission packaging, increased doctrinal updates, and faster technology absorption. Finally, creating an aerospace force capable of disrupting the adversary's decision cycles. This is a cyclic process, not a one-time sequence. Immediate actions generate evidence. Medium-term actions turn that evidence into institutions. Long-term actions build a culture that sustains redesign. Remember, institutions often confuse activity with progress. Running a sensor shooter loop is an activity. Reducing decision cycle time under realistic stress is real progress. Procuring a new system is an activity. Adopting it into a tested, compatible force structure is real progress. The distinction is the central focus of this roadmap. In short, force design is the decisive bridge between innovation, integration, and future aerospace advantage. As the character of war is changing, our operational environment is becoming more challenging. Multi-domain operations will demand more than old-style coordination now. What force design gives us is a blueprint. 5 demands, illustrative packages built on a repeatable method, and a three-phase roadmap with concrete measures of success. Having established the nuances of an aerospace force design, the question that remains, and that one we now must answer together, is what model might work for the Indian Air Force?
Having understood the necessity of force design in the aerospace domain, I will now present a workable model for the Indian Air Force, arguing that this is not only about platforms and budgets, but about the architecture that transforms the Indian Air Force into something far more powerful. The core question we want to answer today is how does the Indian Air Force move from a force that coordinates its aerospace capabilities to the one that converges them? The answer is a model, one that keeps the existing force fully operational while building and testing multi-domain capabilities through a purpose-built formation called the National Aerospace Battle Innovation Hub, or NUB. Let me walk you through it. In May 2025, during Operation Sindoor, India showcased its growing capabilities by using air power and addressing cross-domain attacks from Pakistan. While this operation marked the early stages of MDO, further enhancements are necessary. The mission-specific setup should lead to a permanent operational structure supported by institutional experimentation. Although the operation was successful, the brief conflict suggests that future encounters with the same adversary may be more challenging as the adversary adapts. Continuous improvements of our capabilities is crucial. To prepare for a long-term conflict in aerospace domain, we need a dynamic and integrated force design rooted in innovation. So, how do we actually build such a force? High-performing organizations struggle to redesign themselves while managing daily operations, as these tasks compete for resources. Govindarajan and Trimble, in their book, The Other Side of Innovation, suggest splitting the organization into two parts, the performance engine and the dedicated team. Borrowing this concept for us, the performance engine encompasses the existing Indian Air Force, including its operational and support commands, continuing its daily operations without interruption. The dedicated team is the NUB, a permanently constituted combat testing organization with dedicated elements and units based at a single Indian Air Force base under the direct authority of Air Headquarters. It would be entrusted with one specific task: to design, test, validate, and refine force structures capable of invoking multiple domains to achieve effects via the aerial domain. It is neither to be confused with a think tank nor a study cell. It is a standing formation that trains together, fights together in exercises, and feeds what it's learning back into the Indian Air Force to keep the force design abreast of technological inductions. The link between the Indian Air Force and the NUB has to be actively managed. Separate budgets, separate review forums, and clear protocols for who provides what. If left as an additional task to the existing Indian Air Force formations, the daily pressures of operations will pull people and equipment back into the routine task. Protecting the NUB's autonomy is a precondition for the whole model to work at all. The experiences of other military forces show that having a structured system is crucial for making tactical innovations work. It is also clear that combining different functions at a strategic level is challenging, and a dedicated structure for coordinating operations is essential for long-term success. The NUB combines insights from all these examples. It would validate concepts operationally through wargaming, create a command relationship at each level, and integrate effects across domains, in parallel rather than sequentially. It also establishes a permanent institutional structure and a protected budget, which formalizes these learning cycles. We would not be trying something which is untested. We would be implementing an improved model based on experimentation and learning. Let me quickly outline the core elements of NUB. It is a force that will comprise existing elements from all 6 domains, capable of orchestrating effects through the aerospace domain. The elements would include aircraft, unmanned aerial systems, space assets, air defense units, surface-to-surface missiles, command and control elements, electronic warfare and intelligence units,
as well as components that can counter and amplify air power effects in the cognitive domain. Additionally, it would include units designated to test new technologies such as the 5th and 6th generation stealth aircraft, swarm drones, manned-unmanned teaming, and new hypersonic weapons, enhanced by artificial intelligence and machine learning. Establishing such a unit under NUB would yield multiple benefits. Alongside testing the technology, we can study its implementation and effects on the current aerospace environment. This approach enables parallel improvements, ensuring that by the time we integrate the technology, it will be proven and aligned with current doctrines and force structures. This model will ensure that we can achieve convergent effects right from the time a technology is inducted into the Indian Air Force. This replicates the test, fail, learn, and iterate model. Now, central to NUB is the unified data backbone, which ensures common data standards, shared access, and integrated information. New technologies would be developed and based on this data backbone. Finally, a cyber resilience node within the NUB will protect the formation's networks and add offensive cyber capabilities. NUB's operating philosophy shifts from a kill chain to kill web. A kill chain is a linear process where a sensor detects an object and directs a weapon. While effective against slower opponents, it is vulnerable to tactics such as jamming and cyber intrusion. In contrast, a kill web enhances resilience through redundancies and integrated data across multiple domains, enabling it to withstand adversarial attacks and without failure. Additionally, I want to offer a word of caution here. This concept can easily be misunderstood. The kill web is not the entire of NUB. It is just one of the many components within a much larger framework. While it is significant, it does not represent the entire concept on its own. Boyd's OODA loop highlights that the site that completes the cycle faster gains an advantage. The kill web enables a rapid, integrated, and resilient OODA cycle across multiple domains. To prepare the aerospace power for the future in a multi-domain environment, NUB serves as a test bed for new concepts and technologies. The experiments provide valuable insights and lessons essential for innovation. While not all innovations are implemented, NUB's primary outputs are the lessons learned, focusing on contemporary challenges faced by the Indian Air Force with a tailored approach. NUB doesn't need to succeed every time. Its role is to turn high uncertainty bids into validated outcomes or learn from its failures, ultimately enhancing organizational knowledge either ways. To explain it further, let's examine a hypothetical war game. Blue Air Force, having adopted a similar model to that of NUB, which designed, tested, validated, and refined the Blue Air Force's operational philosophy and force design, specifically addressing a contemporary issue of absorbing cross-domain inputs and reacting to converge effect organically. Now, the Blue Air Force, having implemented the operating philosophy and refined its force structure, is pitched against a Red Force, which is based on a conventional model. Now let's examine how this face-off would pan out.
What I'm going to show you now isn't a real conflict, and it doesn't refer to any specific country. The two sides are simply Red Force and Blue Force. And I want to be upfront about one thing before I start. In this example, Red Force is not weaker than Blue Force. Red has equal capabilities across all 6 domains, which are integrated, but lacks the system to achieve a converged effect in battle. The key difference lies here in their organization. Blue's system within NUB connects all air power elements across the 6 domains, providing a unified instrument for convergence. This structure allows formation to act on emerging threats through pre-delegated authority. To understand the effect of convergence, let us now picture a battle scenario between Red and Blue. Both forces have an air mission commander who oversees the aerial battle of their respective air forces. However, in the case of the Red Air Force, missions are planned at the command level, which also retains execution authority. The Red Air Mission Commander only oversees mission execution and makes critical decisions based on the effects required for either defensive or offensive operations. Each operation type is performed in silos. The Red Commander needs to reach back to his command headquarters when he requires another domain effector to meet his operational mission requirements. This induces multiple linear kill chains within a well-connected Red Force. On the other hand, Blue Air Mission Commander, once assigned a planned mission, has delegated authority over components from multiple domains under his command that are required to generate effects in the air domain. During execution, he retains commands of the integrally assigned multi-domain assets of the nub formation and can converge effects to pursue his objectives. This mission command also enhances the decision superiority of Blue. Now, consider a scenario wherein the Blue commander is overseeing an offensive mission against disparate Red forces. He can plan and orchestrate the timing of his offensive cyber elements to cause maximum confusion in the Red networks, a capability pursued through cyber persistence that lay dormant until an opportune moment. As he monitors his offensive counter-air elements, the enemy's electronic order of battle is continuously updated by a centralized picture from air, land, and space-based sensors with real-time threat triangulation. The Blue Commander's forces have not only assembled for the task, but have also been trained and structured to absorb such cross-domain inputs and achieve converged effects organically. The new Red SAM batteries and radars have been triangulated and identified in real time through multi-domain sensors. The Blue Commander can now choose an SSM battery to neutralize emerging threats, ensuring that the mission of other airborne elements continues unhindered. As the strike hits its targets, the information cell have already begun incorporating multi-sensor battle damage assessment inputs for release to create cognitive dissonance among the Red population, leadership, and forces. The mission was a success. The Blue Commander was trained and expected to make decisions. The technology was absorbed seamlessly into the force structure. And the nub-tested force structure lived up to its rigorous peacetime wargaming and simulation rigor. During the same encounter, Red had similar equipment, but his force design was not optimized for the fight. The Red commander activated air defenses and followed procedures, but the concurrent and conflicting demands of the Blue multi-domain offensive overwhelmed the decision-making process. This legacy force structure struggled to adapt to the Blue offensive, leading to cognitive dissonance within the Red force. Though the above example was a biased exaggeration, it was necessary to grasp the nub concept and underscore the importance of force design rooted in structural innovation. But even if such a concept is tested, there is still a harder question. Can it actually work at scale? Is this realistic? Or is this just a conceptual theory? China and Russia faced challenges in multi-domain operations. China's issues relate to structural consolidation, while Russia's struggle with information coordination. The nub model aims to combine the strengths of both approaches by establishing a dedicated innovation team within a single military service. The nub model promotes operational integration and includes formal learning mechanisms to maintain innovation and knowledge transfer during personal changes. Ultimately, it provides a balanced solution that avoids common pitfalls seen in other militaries. The nub addresses 5 future warfare demands: speed, resilience, convergent effect, distributed and pulsed operations, and continuous learning as described by an earlier speaker. Let me highlight three. The speed is at which the primary metric is the sensor to effect cycle time under realistic contested conditions. AI assists orientation, pre-delegated authority compresses the decision. Action can be kinetic, electronic, or cyber, whichever the kill web makes available. Resilience. The nub would be the first IF formation to operate a rehearsed, distributed basing plan as routine, not contingency. Regeneration time from simulated attack to restored capability becomes a formal readiness indicator. Continuous learning is the Trent Hohn's fleet problems model applied to the IF. The war game series is not scripted to validate preferred answers. It's designed to break concept, stress logistics, challenge command assumptions, and expose data dependencies. After action, findings feed straight into doctrine revision, which flows back to the performance engine. We need to make one important note on artificial intelligence. Remember, it is a decision support tool, not a decision maker. Machine speed is for data processing. Humans still remain responsible for meaning, priority, and ethical judgment. That distinction has to be built into the structure, not left to individual discretion. The implementation roadmap runs in 3 phases. In the first 2 years, incubation and experimentation. Establish the nub at one operational air command. Mandate common data standards. Launch the wargame series. Map and formalize who has authority to act and for what. Protect the dedicated team's budget from being absorbed by day-to-day operational pressure. Success here isn't activity. It's a measurable drop in sensor to effect cycle time. In years 2 to 5, build out the structure and embed it. Validated doctrine gets written into formal training across the IF. New concepts which needs to be validated will come to NUB. Professional military education has been updated to include systems thinking and data literacy. Career pathways are formalized, so serving in the NUB is career advancing rather than career limiting. In years 5 and beyond, institutional adaptation. The wider force absorbs validated multi-domain concepts. Acquisition is reformed to favor open architecture and modularity. The IF presents a proven working model of convergence that other services and a future joint or theater structure can build on. This is the principle of convergence before unification. Prove it inside one service first, then offer it as the foundation for something wider. Before I conclude, it is important to acknowledge 3 serious objections. First, the performance engine dedicated team separation is a commercial concept that cannot survive military command hierarchy. The answer is that the NUB remains under Air Headquarters authority. What is managed separately is its budget, its wargame mandate, and its doctrine feed, not its command accountability. Second, genuine MDO requires Army-Navy integration from the start, rather than being deferred to a later phase. The answer is that IF-centric is not the end state. It is the precondition. China created its SSF to consolidate cross-domain functions and dissolved it in 2024, splitting it back into specialized arms. That's an implicit admission that structural consolidation without proven formation level convergence produces reform on paper, not real operational change. Convergence has to be proven first. Concentrating innovation within a small group can create personality dependence, which the NUB addresses through permanence, institutionalization, and structural redundancy. As a permanent team within the IF, the NUB ensures continuity and incorporates insights from war games into military doctrine, reducing reliance on individual memory. This design aims to reduce the reliance on a specific personality for innovation. Let me conclude by bringing together the four parts of this research. In today's complex threat environment, lasting advantage comes not just from having the latest technology, but from the ability to absorb, integrate, and deploy it faster than adversaries can adapt to it. This challenge requires a strategic focus on innovation rather than relying on procurement alone. Innovation is effective only when new ideas are integrated into real systems, not merely outlined on paper. It becomes a genuine warfighting advantage when force design incorporates it into a cohesive system. Future warfare requires speed, resilience, convergence, distributed operations, and continuous adaptation. We can meet these demands with mission-oriented force packages and a three-phase roadmap, focusing first on the desired effect and then how to achieve it. The IF should move from coordinating to converging its capabilities by establishing the National Aerospace Battle Innovation Hub, or the NUB. This permanent team will ensure operational readiness while developing and validating new combat strategies, transforming the Indian Air Force from a vulnerable kill chain into a robust kill web. Taken together, these four parts make a single argument. Future aerospace dominance will not be decided by the side with only better equipment, but by the one that also learns, integrates, and evolves faster than its adversary along with superior equipment. By building the National Aerospace Battle Innovation Hub as a permanent engine for continuous redesign, the Indian Air Force can achieve and sustain decision superiority, shaping future conflicts rather than reacting to them. Thank you.
Absolute silence in the auditorium is only indicative of so much to absorb, so much put in by the team and panelists. And I have half a mind of asking them if everybody had the time to please repeat, and we can hear it again and let it sink in and repeat again. And maybe in 3 times we will absorb everything that you have said. But great effort, great, I think, points made. If we have to future-proof innovation, integration, and force design so well identified and correctly identified. And I'm happy that innovation, you have not stuck to only technological innovation, but also towards doctrinal issues, organizational, and innovation in force design itself. I will hold my other comment or 1 or 2 things that I wanted to add on for later. I would throw it open for questions first. Please, I would request that if you have a suggestion to make, please write it down on a piece of paper and give the team, and I'm sure they will take it on board. Stick to pointed, brief, crisp questions so that we can handle a lot in the next we have a good about 15-20 minutes. And I'm sure a lot of discussion that can happen from the questions will be very useful. Yeah. Yeah, please go.
Sir, many thanks. Group Captain Neil Jones from the United Kingdom. Many thanks indeed for the very insightful presentation. 2 pointed questions from me. Does the NAB model incorporate industry into its structure? And what role do you see TAC-DE playing alongside the NAB?
Thank you for your question, sir. I'll answer it in 2 parts. The first part, as you said, what role has TAC-D in it? So the full form for TAC-D is Tactics and Air Combat Development Establishment. So what we are proposing, so TAC-D is at a tactical level, whereas this NUB formation is at an operational level. So it is combining all the efforts that are required for an operational force to continuously redesign and redevelop is operational art, is what we are aiming at. Corollary can be drawn, like in the previous discussion, a book was covered, the strategy bridge. That strategy bridge was between
political ends and military power. This nub is like a bridge between military strategies and military operations. So that is what our proposal is. And industries will be forming part of it as the requirements that have been given by the nub structure.
Yeah, please.
Thank you, sir. Really an absorbing presentation. Uh, are we, I'm Group Captain Arang from IDSA, MPIDSA. I also want to understand when we are looking at future proofing ourselves, how are we catering not only from tactics and all other aspects you have covered, indigenous capability building in terms of learning from best practices in the leading countries like US, FRL, PLAF Research Laboratory. And secondly, how do you ensure your indigenous projects? I'll borrow the phrase used by Baduria sir. He says, three shift approach to projects like AMCA and Kaveri, making them successful. How do we become a real aerospace power by addressing these issues? Thank you.
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you for the question, sir. For the indigenous projects, let me explain it with an example, sir. So we have something as a concept of CATS warrior for LCA, the MUMTI concept, the man unmanned teaming. So what we are proposing through NOW is whenever such a disruptive technology is coming into our nation, it may be indigenous in the case of example which I am giving. So I need to first test that technology, what kind of force design is required, how do I adapt this technology into my force design to have that advantage. So if I have to quote like Andrew Kaplinovich, he quotes in his book of Origin of Victory that it is not about the disruptive technology alone. It is more about, if you see the examples from Germans, examples of those Panzer tanks wherein they shed their armor to have more mobility. So it was kind of a, and the force design they made. So it is how you adapt that technology into your structure. So what NAV is proposing, like what Wing Commander Medhavi also covered. So there are stages, like for 1 to 2 years, I protect the budget of it. Second is I start training the force design versus proven. I start training the warriors, like we have now weapons branch into Air Force. Now, in the third part is what something we will come to it, because it is not only, it's just a model which we have proposed. In a NUV, it can be elements from DRDO also, it can be elements from DCA, NCIPT also, and NTRO. So they can continue to learn, and these feedback can go back to them. So all in all, what we are proposing to now is test, learn, prove or disapprove, and feed this learning into the organization and collaborate with everybody. That includes all your industrial partners also, that includes your whichever technology is coming into the organization, sir.
Yeah, you wanted to add something? Yeah, please.
So I'll just make a quick addition to this, whatever Vingorna Bhati has covered, sir. The whole idea of designing NUB is we are not undermining technology. What we are saying that along with the growth of technology, you also require a structure to absorb it. So our innovation was more towards a structural innovation that we have been, that was part of our research.
Yeah, please.
Thank you so much for the insightful presentation. And I would like to come back to
If you
Wing
can just
Commander.
mention your name and
Yeah,
if
I'm
you're from a
Prajwal. I'm
different
a
organization.
research intern at ICWA.
Yeah, thank you.
And my question, I would like to come back to Wing Commander Chandra's comment on AI. What is the panel's view on the increasing use of AI and unmanned systems as alternatives to manned operations, especially in conflict, of course? This is a question under the larger debate of technology replacing man. And the second part of the question is how or to what extent is this factor being taken into consideration for a future-ready Air Force? Thank you.
Who would like to take on? Go ahead.
Check. Okay, so answering your first question of the increasing use of AI and unmanned systems. So as Wing Commander Chandra already covered, that it is a decision support tool. The decision still lies with the human. We've seen the increasing use of AI. One of the most recent examples was the use of Anthropic by the US forces in targeting. We've also seen a flip side of that, which happened. So it is not that we are averse to the fact, but a consideration is being given as to what is the right extent or use of AI as far as our operations are concerned. Obviously, these things will refine over a period of time, and then we can probably entrust them with more responsibilities. But that is the whole point when we came to NUB, that it is a continuous experimentation engine which keeps experimentation, and whatever is the best possible for today's day and age is what we are going to implement. Second was to what extent are unmanned systems and AI also incorporated. So that is the whole pretext of designing this force also. There are emerging technologies which are coming. They are sort of disrupting how we look at the conventional operations that happen. But again, we need to keep in mind that it is not that this is the only thing and this is going to be the future. For example, if you have read Duhe and his theory of air power. So he was professing that bombers will eventually get through, or that is something which is an eventuality and will eventually happen. But it did not pan out that way. So over some period of time, we were able to develop anti-aircraft capabilities, and it is not as simple or as the theory was professed by that time. So yes, today we see unmanned aerial systems uh, sort of imposing disproportionate costs where they are used. But very soon technology will catch up. And that is why you have to be open-minded enough to incorporate them into your own operations, but at the same time, not that your entire operations depend wholly on that. And for that, our proposition was that there is this engine which keeps trying, which is there is a continuous system which is in place, so that we don't involve ourselves too much in something that may change tomorrow, and it is going to change.
You wanted to add something? Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. I'll just add on to his regarding US part. See, as war is evolving, as I said, the character of war is changing. The cost of shot, it is just waiting for the cost of shot to drop. So once the cost of shot to take out a US actually reduces, then natural progression is US needs to get more sophisticated. So the cost of systems would also rise eventually. So the sophistication will raise to an extent that it will almost foreshadow the cost which we spend on 6th-gen aircrafts or so. So if the progression is such way, we are just near the horizon where we are able to develop this, reducing the cost of shot to take out a US. So the solution right now is not to go deeply into US, neither stay away from them. It's a mid-course, and what amount of mid-course capability we need to develop, we are suggesting that if it is put through the NUB thing, then it will give you the answer.
Yeah, I think they've answered, but even I have a point on AI, which I'll cover maybe while summing up, but you make a great point, but we have to think much beyond. While at conceptual level, you've addressed many things. AI is something we need to really think for future-proofing. And the moment we touch AGI, even if you took at 5 years, 7 years, what the world is saying, you double the time, but we have to start future-proofing now. And I think that should feature in your... yeah, next question, please.
Tanequa team, Commodore Dowling from New Zealand. I'm a little bit concerned that the NUB has decided that you're going to go single service straight away. Did the panel give much consideration to the danger of either replicating capabilities or letting capability gaps appear because you're not going tri-service from the start?
Mm-hmm.
Why single service? Why single service is taking?
You understood? Can you just repeat the last bit of your question? He hasn't understood fully. The replicating part, you mean replication from other services?
So there is a potential danger, or did the panel consider there is a potential danger if you start with a single domain, that you derive false lessons about that single domain? And is there therefore a danger of doing that if you don't go multi-domain conceptually thinking, as in tri-service or beyond from the start?
Okay, to understand in terms of why we are going, the dangers of replicacity, in terms of why we are proposing multi-domain. So the syndicate's opinion here, we are not into multi-domain is one of the answers that we are looking at for future proofing. We are not suggesting that it is the only answer. So it is one of the answers wherein you have got multiple domains acting onto a single domain, wherein you converge your effects so as to have the most adapt or most apt combination of domains to get your effects that you want. At the end of the day, uh, effects is what that you want. Domains is immaterial. If you are able to achieve that effect through multiple domains, you will have economy of effort, which is what is the aim.
If you were hinting at single service implementation, then what I would add on to what Tejas said was right now we are concentrating on aerospace power, so that is the reason we have recommended NUB as for aerospace power. And in our presentation itself, we had covered once it is successful, the same model can be borrowed or the same model can be followed in other two services as well. To start with, we are looking at aerospace, NUB and aerospace power.
Yes, please. Yeah, please go ahead.
My name is Kunal. I work at PTI. I have two pointed questions. I think the gentleman just asked about the model that has been proposed, the NABH. I have a little query because I'm a bit mixed going by the PowerPoint presentation. So is it going to be a tri-service model or is it going to be an Air Force embedded model? That's my first part. And the second part is that we often talk about the evolving nature of warfare. We have seen in Operation Sindoor, it was largely non-contact warfare. As we progress forward and formulate our strategies, as many commanders and military leaders have often prophesied, that land perhaps will retain the currency as far as the outcome of a warfare is concerned. But does the panel feel that land will still retain that currency, or will that honor go to the air power? And if the chair also would feel like, maybe you can also comment, sir. Thank you so
Don't
much.
put the chair in problem. You ask the panel first. But I will certainly answer in the end. Who's answering? Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so first, going by the part of trial service or an Air Force model. So the thing is that the uh, topic itself is regarding aerospace power and hence the context in which it has been given. Having said that, we would like to say that aerospace power is also one of the most suited when it comes to refining or developing this model of multi-domain operations. If I just take a minute to give you the historical context, so the MDO concept was first brought into the limelight by the US Army, and because they felt that for their land forces to achieve what they had to, they needed to leverage multi domains. Why it did not happen in the Air Force and Navy was because they were inherently by their design utilizing multi-domain capabilities at that point of time. However, for our defense forces, we have given last year this vision that we intend to now our concept of future operations is going to be multi-domain. Since this was in the aerospace power concept, we have given a model which is an academic exercise that this is the one which is most suited as far as developing or innovating in terms of your force structures most adaptable to MDO is concerned. Uh, Next was whether land will retain the primacy. I would say again that is a very contextual question. It will depend on what are the political outcomes and what are the military objectives that we define out or cull out from them.
I'll just give a quick add-on to the last part of the question between land and air. So every domain has its particular role in any kind of conflict. And as Colin Gray in his book, Air Power for Strategic Effect, had quoted that air, by virtue of its air alone cannot decide a conflict. However, you cannot disregard air because of the various factors on which air provides you reach, mobility, and distance. So, one thing that you need to keep in mind that air power alone may not be able to win you war, but no war can be won without air power.
Yeah,
I want to ask a question.
yeah. Who's asking? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, please, sir.
Yeah, Air Marshal Sharma. So the kind of primacy that you are giving to NUB, to my mind, uh, I see that the people who would need to man it would have to be exceptionally qualified and experienced. So in your internal discussions, the question is, in your internal discussions, have you looked at the challenges of human resource that you would need out there to make this functional? And if you've discussed that, then what are your conclusions? If you haven't, then you may like to discuss it later on internally. Human resource challenges to make NUB work. And please be careful with your answer because AOP is sitting here.
Thank you, sir.
You can just speak your mind because you are dealing with innovation. Don't look at anybody.
Sir, rightly brought out, sir. In fact, what we would like to propose in NUV is somewhere, yes, the specialist would be required, sir, in the initial stages when I have to prove and prevent the budget. But what is more important is, like, if you see in the corporate world also, the concept of supervisor. So who is this supervisor who is going to coordinate the effort between my performance engine, which is my IF organization, and this dedicated team which I have created? And that is why we have proposed this now at an operational command level, wherein the supervisor is a senior air officer with good purchasing power, abilities, and coordinating ability also. Like also, if you see in the book Other Side of Innovation, Vijay Govindarajan also quoted that this supervisor has to be a senior guy, and it is more about the discipline, humility, rather than him becoming a rebel. So because I'm going to get the resources from performance engine only, and I have to manage it well. And other point is, it's not necessary that I have only the specialist, because there is also a problem of organizational memory coming into the dedicated system, sir. So yes, initially I would require, but as Wing Commander Midhavi has also proposed in his roadmap, that after 3 to 5 years, you also have your PME plan. So you are getting your new forces also trained, so you can send back these people after 3 or 4 years back into the organization. Their expertise can be utilized as well, sir.
Sir, if I may add, we had a discussion with respect to this topic in terms of what is the structure of NUB or what manpower and from where it would come. The topic itself is next topic which we had designed in terms of, it is the next research topic that we would propose in terms what is the specifics of NUB in terms of manpower requirement. Yes, it's a very deep topic which we have not researched in depth, to be frank.
So one last question, I think.
Last question I have, sir. Last questions.
Okay, last. Quick one.
Good afternoon. My name is Dhruv. I work for a defense company called C2C Advanced System. Sir, in your presentation, you showed a slide on acquisitional inertia. And being from the industry, I would like to ask an industry-sided question. Is that, do you believe, or do the panelists believe that the industry is in a position to support an initiative like NUB? If so, what would that model look like? And if not, then how much would come from within India and how much would come from abroad in terms of the technology and whatnot?
Thank you for the question. I think the question that you asked is about participation of the industry. It's a constant process. It's an evolving process in which, if you see 10 years back, to the extent which industry was able to support us, today we are in a much better state. So it's a constantly evolving thing in which the industry will grow, and as Indian industry grows, it will be able to support NUB in a much better fashion. And maybe we do not require technology from outside in the future. Right now, maybe we require something. Maybe in the future, that ratio will keep decreasing.
Okay, I must thank you all for participating in this discussion and asking all those great questions. I think I'll thank the team for really putting in focus in terms of future proofing what all are the areas. I think they've touched upon a lot of areas and have, I think, conceptually don't get too carried away with nub and other things. Conceptually, they're given that we need to change. We need to bring a this thing, and I'm glad, being in uniform, you've taken that step of doing the research and coming out with stuff that, okay, it is not work as usual that we want to do. We are talking of innovation in industry, innovation in capability building, innovation in how we are going to acquire. What about organization and force design? And this is what we propose. This is one of the things. And it's a great direction to go into. It's a great effort, rightly or wrongly. Chief is sitting here. They will all look at it and they will decide in future. But to come out with new stuff, to target a change, to innovate in structures and organization, I think that itself is a great beginning. So I must really appreciate the kind of effort that you people have put in bringing out, firstly touching upon all the essentials and bringing out a clear-cut recommendation, not just theory and leave it hanging. I'm really, I think that question on acquisition, and you put it very innovatively, acquisition inertia. It is not only the acquisition inertia that you will need to deal with when you are doing this change. Everybody above 40 in this gathering has an inertia. So if you go beyond 40, you have to deal with his own inertia, what he's learned, the services, the organizations, the command that you want to go to. Firstly, they will say, you tell me, you sit here, you tell me what you're doing. So that's the question I think Himachal Sharma was asking. So we need to, in your concept, you want autonomy. So you want to put in a new structure in place, totally autonomous, directly under their headquarters. I think finally you want innovation in technology, innovation, new stuff to be developed. You should be able to acquire it. You should be able to induct it. Is that happening now? Not happening. Therefore, you need to deal with new stuff. The inertias of the past are historical, the way we fight last war, many of those things that covered in the previous session. You need to close some rule books, you need to close some, financial procedures, processes, this thing, and develop new ones for our own technology development, our own induction, our own capability development, and build your structures the way you want. And build a lot of autonomy and delegation within that. So I think you people have made a great beginning. AI is one issue that I think little more attention is required, because the moment you go to general AI, maybe if not 3 years, the world is saying 5 years, everything that you're talking today will change. It will change so rapidly that at the moment we are trying to deal with innovation, which is already into our industry and into many of our systems, and we are trying to deal with how to, do it faster and how to evolve as organizations faster and how to integrate. Imagine what will happen when the entire revolution takes place with the AGI and the capability to design fast, capability to have new systems. Your organization will need to transform so fast. So whatever concept you make, I think you need to build another nub, maybe nub 1, nub 2. Nub 2 to deal with 5 years from now, how I will deal with AGI, how will the organization look, how we can change the organizational or some setup. At the moment, processes take procedures to change and bring in a new concept in the organization takes 1 year, at times 3 years, at times 5 years. But we need to do it maybe over a month. It needs to be delegated just to the chief. He says, no, put it this way. It happens. So a lot of innovation required as we go forward. If you're talking of future, I think CAUSE has done a great job in terms of starting this process to think out of the box, to read a lot, but think Indian, think in our context, think in what we do and what we want to do, think of our neighbors. One red, other half reds around. Even the world starts turning red at times. So you have to think differently. It is our concept, our challenges are different. So those challenges must be handled, and they have to be handled by people like you. I think you've done a great job, and I really wish CAUSE the very best ahead. A round of applause from each one of you, please, for the panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair and speakers, for such a thoughtful session, and to the audience for their enthusiastic participation. May I now request Air Marshal Bharat Kumar, former Air Officer Commanding-in-Chief, avid author, and someone who has devoted his entire life towards enriching the discourse on air power in the country, to kindly come up on the stage and felicitate our guests and participants. With this, we come to the end of session 2, and we will now move into the next segment of the seminar. May I request all the participants of number 5 WASP to come up on the stage? Wing Commander Ashok Rawat, Wing Commander Ravi Kishore Mishra, Wing Commander Dhruv Shukla, Wing Commander Ashu Saxena, Wing Commander Nitesh Yadav, Wing Commander Chakrapani Kajla, Wing Commander Tuhin Mukherjee, Wing Commander Boli Srivastav, Commander Amit Kumar Yadav, Miss Shravani Shagun, Group Captain Santosh Kumar Mishra, Captain Jisan Unikrishnan, Wing Commander Joseph Simon, Wing Commander Amit Khatri, Wing Commander Medhavi Chandra, Wing Commander Ravi Kumar Venigala, Wing Commander Tejas Subhash Kawale, Wing Commander Aditya Bharti, Wing Commander Abhishek Kanyal, Wing Commander Gautam Kumar. May I now request Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh, Chief of the Air Staff, to kindly come up on the stage and hand over the certificates to the graduating officers, please. I'll announce the name, sir. Wing Commander Ashok Rawat. The participants may take a step forward. Wing Commander Ravi Kishore Mishra. Wing Commander Dhruv Shukla. Wing Commander Ashu Saxena. Wing Commander Nitesh Yadav. Wing Commander Chakrapani Kajla. Sir. Wing Commander Tuhin Mukherjee. Wing Commander Boli Srivastav. Commander Amit Kumar Yadav. Miss Shravani Shagun. Group Captain Santosh Kumar Mishra. Captain Jisan Unikrishnan. Wing Commander Joseph Simon. Wing Commander Amit Khatri. Wing Commander Medhavi Chandra. Wing, Com- Wing Commander Ravi Kumar Venigala. Wing Commander Tejas Subhash Kawale. Wing Commander Aditya Bharti. Wing Commander Abhishek Kanyal. Wing Commander Gautam Kumar. Yes. So this is extra. May I now request, so we'll have a group photograph. Yes. May I now request the program mentors, DG Caps, Commandant Corps, and the program directors, Group Captain BK and Reddy, and Wing Commander Pichupu Raja, to kindly join everyone on the stage for the group photograph. Thank you so much, sir. May I now request Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh, Chief of the Air Staff, to kindly stay back for the release of the WASP Journal. May I also request Air Marshal Hardeep Benz, Air Officer Personnel, Air Vice Marshal P.A. Shah, Commandant Corps, and Group Captain B.K.N. Reddy, Head of Faculty of WASP at Corps, to kindly come up on the stage for the release of the inaugural WASP Journal. The inaugural WASP Journal embodies the program's core objective of developing strategic thinkers capable of addressing the complex security challenges of the 21st century. As the first publication of its kind under the WASP initiative, the journal serves as a platform for professional discourse, encouraging officers, scholars, and students of strategy to engage with challenging ideas, question conventional assumptions, and contribute to the development of aerospace strategic thought. It reflects the belief that operational excellence must be complemented by rigorous intellectual inquiry, strategic judgment, and a deep understanding of the evolving character of the warfare. It stands as a testament to the Indian Air Force's commitment to building not only a technologically advanced force, but also an intellectually agile one, prepared to meet the demands of the future warfare with insight, innovation, and strategic foresight. Thank you, everyone. May I now request Air Vice Marshal Anil Gulani, Director General CAPS, to come up on the stage and accept a token of appreciation on behalf of the Chief of the Air Staff for his relentless contribution to the strategic discourse in the country. AVM Anil Gulani, as the Additional Director General and later as the Director General of CAPS, has been instrumental in the conceptualization and the conduct of WASP since its inception. He has transformed the 25-year-old Center for Air Power Studies to Center for Aerospace Power and Strategic Studies, indicating the expanded role it now plays. As an endeavor to take the discourse on air power to the youth of the country, he initiated the now much sought after CAPS internship program. Thank you for your service, sir. Yes, sir. May I now request AVM Golani to deliver the closing remarks.
Air Chief Marshal AP Singh, Air Chief Marshal Baduria, distinguished veterans, colleagues, friends from CAPS, good afternoon. And what you have witnessed earlier in the day is only a sneak preview of what lies ahead for these WASP graduates whose numbers have continued to grow since the time this program first started in 2022. My compliments to the graduating WASP officers who not only endured the readings, but also engaged in critical thinking, intense debates and discussions, and some writing work as well, some of what you saw just now. This would not have been possible without the support of all the distinguished faculty and mentors who have continually strived for excellence in ensuring that each topic and book was not only dissected threadbare, but its enduring relevance grasped appropriately by the course participants. I would especially like to place on record the effort put in by Group Captain Reddy from Corps and Wing Commander Pichipu Raja from CAPS for their commitment and effort in ensuring that the quality of the program this year improved significantly from the previous editions. And I am also sanguine that the thrust towards continuous upgradation and the improvement of the WASP will continue in the coming years with the support from Air Headquarters. A word for the graduating participants and future aspirants of this program. As you all would have learned, extensive reading leads to knowledge, and with knowledge comes wisdom. It is this knowledge and wisdom that will empower you, and it is never ending. Alfred Tennyson said, knowledge is like the horizon. The closer you get to it, the further it recedes. It is important to understand your position within the organization and have the courage of conviction to speak truth to power. I am reminded of the famous quote by George Kennan, who said, avoid the treacherous curtain of deference. You should be able to empower the commander with options, because when the senior leadership fails, the failure is often systemic, and the people down below cannot absolve themselves of blame. Remember that humility is an important virtue. However, at the same time, empathy should never cloud your judgment, and you must be firm when you need to be. The importance of the written word cannot be understated. More often than not, it is the doctrines, strategy, and well-written statements of case that bring about changes. It is therefore important to be able to put down your thoughts on paper with clarity and conviction and logic that is easily understood. Unless you practice this on a regular basis, it will not come on its own when you want it. While you just saw the journal being released by the participants at College of Air Warfare, what I would like to tell you is that at CAPS, the participants are writing a volume on aerospace air power in the age of limited conflict, which we are going to publish shortly. This book would argue that air power is a political military instrument that allows states to signal resolve, impose costs, deny adversary objectives, shape battlefield conditions, and control escalation. And this volume is going to be designed around a non-NATO and great power perspective. The book will answer the core question on how should air power be applied to achieve bounded political objectives like what we have witnessed. And as this is going to be my last event as DG CAPS, I couldn't have asked for a better finale. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Trust Forum for National Security Studies, which reposed faith in me to lead CAPS, the Chief of Air Staff, and all the officers who have been associated with us, veterans, and all the members of the think tank community in India and abroad, members from the academia and my colleagues at CAPS, without whose support and effort we would not have been where we are today. I would urge you all to continue pushing the pen. Never let disdain get the better of curiosity, and ensure that it is your work that speaks for you. Thanks to AVM Murray ACS Training and his team at Air Headquarters, Squad Leader Anjan Singh and the staff at CAPS, Group Captain Nathani and the staff at the Air Force Auditorium, the Mess Secretary Akash Mess, and all the waiters and the staff over here who ensured that everyone was adequately fed. And thank you all for the conduct of today's seminar. In the end, I'd also like to thank the support that CAPS received from the Strat Directorate at Air Headquarters, and AVM Sanjay Eswal and DG Aerops who's sitting over here. Thank you very much, and Jai Hind. Please join us for a cup of tea outside. Thank you.